Hey everybody, James Yeager here with Tactical Response. I'm also joined by Trey Sprinkle, the last American outlaw, and Nate Garrison, the second to the last ZZ Top member,
The Nate Garrison.
the Nate Garrison. Wow, boys, we just went on a grand adventure.
This is true.
The grandest of adventures, I would say.
So, inspired by my 1984 viewing of Red Dawn, I wanted to make sure I got some time in over there with the Ruskies, or the Orcs, as the Ukrainians call them. I thought that was odd. So what I will pose to you guys and to myself, why? Nick, Trey, why did you go?
Oh, man. So that question has been asked to me already. And my initial response almost was like, if I have to explain why to you, you might not understand. And that's not necessarily a dig on the person asking. In part, it's hard for me to explain it. The best I can come up with was initially you were going, and I was like, well, I can't let you go by yourself, so I guess I'm in now too. But I also, I understood that it would be a learning experience. And there were valuable lessons that were to be had. The catch was we just had to be able to make it back, to be able to pass those lessons on or embody them in our own life.
So, Trey, why for you?
So it started out for me that I saw she was probably a 6-year-old little girl that had lost her life in what I assume was a mortar attack. And I was like, man, I know this little girl was screaming for her dad, and her dad couldn't be there to help her. Well, I mean, cool, then I'll help their dads, or maybe I can be the one that helps them. And then it followed up with, I got an email from James that said, hey, I just want to let you know, I'm going to put in an application for the Foreign Legion to train them. And I was like, you can't go without me, dude.
And that began the downpour of guys saying, I'm going to. And I knew from some experience doing this that you can't take 12 people. Like the logistics of moving those people and things is, I mean, could you imagine, right? And so I just said, no, I'm just the three amigos, that's it. As for me, why did I go? It's pretty simple. No joke at this point that I'm seeing the end of my life, and it's fine. And two things, I will probably be confined to a wheelchair within a year, and so one last hoorah was in order, in my opinion. Secondly, as I watched the videos, there were Americans and other people training these untrained civilians that have volunteered to fight. And I'm like, hey, who's good at that kind of shit? Me. So it was like, this is like smacked in the face. This is what you should do. So there we went. So packing. We all three have a list of gear and things. What would you say about just getting ready, just preparing?
Oh, man. So being that we were flying over, the biggest, and in retrospect, what should have been the most obvious thing was my bags were too heavy, them empty, right? So you've got a 50-pound limit And then if you go up to 70, you can pay like
200.
right. And so, I've got a really nice old Army London Bridge tactical bag,
Load bag.
loadout bag. And then I've got another one that I picked up from REI. And it's great when we're driving somewhere or we're lugging stuff through a casino in Vegas for SHOT Show. But not so much when you get on a plane and 20 pounds of your weight, 50-pound weight limit is the bag itself.
Don't get too deep in this because we're going in some kind of order.
Okay.
So people will say, is there anything you packed that you shouldn't have? And same question, is there anything you didn't pack you should have? Trey, you're welcome to jump in. And I assume through this whole thing, we're going to talk over each other because that's what the three of us do.
Give me a minute to think. You go,
All
Trey.
right, so, I started my packing list based off of your first Iraqi packing list.
Mm-hmm.
And then I called a bunch of military friends of mine that are still active and said, what should I pack? And so I started.
What they said when I said kind of similar?
Yeah, almost the same. I left out a bunch of thermals and my PVS 31 night vision. We didn't need them for what we did, but
we didn't know what we were going to do.
Yeah, we didn't know what we were going to do. We could have very easily played another role where we needed them because thermals were very prevalent. And then I packed a bunch of winter stuff that I didn't use, but we thought that there was a possibility we might have to stay outside. And so if that would have been the case, I would have used all that. Mm-hmm. That's probably the most thing is that I really packed heavy on expecting to be out there in 20 degrees all day, every day. And I would have also packed I would have changed my jacket to blend in with the civilians more because I noticed that they wore dark blue and black across the board. And I would have had a black plate carrier as well as my plate carrier for those days. That would have been the only things that I thought in my mind I would have changed.
Black plate carrier, boo.
I might have brought a little more civilian clothes than I needed, but part of our list of possibilities was having to on our own escape, and having the civilian clothes for that. So fortunately, we didn't need them, but I don't.
Oh, that's another thing I would have had. So I brought that big Wild Things puffy jacket, and it was great whenever it was cold and when it was rainy. Mm-hmm. I did not have an intermediate jacket, so I was either way too hot or way too cold, never in the middle.
Yeah. I took that 511 with the zip out, the fleece and the shell, and I would say that some kind of jacket with a zip out liner would be ideal because you have to think we're trying to minimize our packing, not only in volume, but weight. And so being able to take one jacket that would be a raincoat or a winter coat or a fleece is a good thing.
Oh, for sure. The lightweight plates in my plate carrier was that was a big help too.
Yeah, shout out to Joey who won't listen to this podcast. He had some super light plates here in the Tetra Response in his carrier, and I switched them for a higher rating, a better plate, but also heavier because he's strong. And I took the light plates and gave them to Nate.
Which were, I didn't realize how many flights of stairs you have to hump up and down to get on and off trains, and that.
Whoa, but one of the things that I'm glad that I took, and as we progressed, it really showed was I wore Cry Precision pants, a Cry shirt, and I had a Cry JPC, and I wore a ball cap. I wish I would have brought American flags, but at the beginning we talked back and forth about saying, should I should I look like an American or should I look like, a Ukrainian or should I be in civilian clothes? We didn't know. I'm glad that I looked like an American because in almost every place that we went, they spotted us, they seen that we were Americans, and I don't know that it gave us, I think it gave us more favor.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all I took was Tennessee flags.
Yep.
So as far as gear, I did a full packing list on YouTube, but I took 170 pounds of gear, and I brought back 40 pounds of gear. And we'll talk about that, but so that's kind of it. Now, before we went, we had an intelligence gathering operation going, trying to find out what was going on exactly. At this point, we didn't know where we were going. We were just gonna show up in Ukraine. Go, hey guys, we're here.
Hey, y'all.
And so as we traveled, we narrowed where we were going to go, but the whole time, constant flow of information and misinformation.
And I don't think so. If you're somebody that was giving us information, I don't think anybody was giving us ill-willed information.
No.
They were trying to look out for us because they cared about us, and they were giving what they thought to be true, which
It was all meant to help. And kind of to your point, this was one of the biggest learning points for me. And I think you can apply it to your life in any context as well. And, Jaeger, you named it the boogeyman, right? Mm-hmm. And, because where I live, I had access to some fifth group guys, and they gave us some insight. I knew some guys that had just gotten back, and they gave me some insight. So a lot of smart people that, wasn't their first rodeo, and we're going over there. And then, when we get to downtown Warsaw and we're talking with people there, we're hearing all kinds of boogeyman stories. On the train, we're hearing all sorts of boogeyman stories. And when we got to Poland, when we first started this, we were all in agreement that we were going to do everything together or none of us were going to do it. Like at any point, one of us could say, no, this is a bad idea, and the other two had to agree. And so you don't want to just chicken out or like pump the brakes unnecessarily, but you don't want to die stupid. And so that requires that you understand how to have a good decision-making process. And when there's so much information in the air, whether it's disinformation or correct information, sometimes it can be hard to do that. And one of the things I picked up from you, Jaeger, was how to not ignore the rumor mill, but you have to look at what are the facts, what is verifiable, right? From our contacts who are inside the country, what are they telling us? We know these people. We can trust them. It's not mainstream media. It's not our favorite 3 or 4 YouTubers who are talking with authority on this subject, even though they're still here stateside. Who are the people that we know inside? What is the information they're giving us? And then base our decision-making process on those inputs.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you guys an example because I met a guy over there that we shared a lot of the same friends. Great guy, has a big company here, and he called a guy that I believe was like a SEAL Team 6 supply officer, and he was running humanitarian aid, and he told us on speakerphone, hey, I'm not, a couple of weeks ago or a couple of days ago, the Russians put a fake bomb on the track, and the last car had a bunch of arms, and they stole the last car, and then now they're the Ukrainians. When you get across the border, the Ukrainians are beating up Americans, taking all of their stuff and sending them back. And Nate and I, the hotel room we had was right across the street from the airport, and it was like the glass hotel room. So I had this dry erase marker. And so Nate and I stayed up all night. I mean, we couldn't sleep. We stayed up all night long and wrote down all of the information and
While
questions
I was sleeping.
while James was sleeping. And I mean, we had it on, 4 mirrors, boards around the shower curtain, all of these questions, all of this stuff that we had is what we thought was intel. And,
And in retrospect, none of it was. It was we were hashing over the rumor mill.
yeah, of YouTube, like there was a YouTuber that we were watching. We were like, hey, I think his map is the best. And then we were looking at Drudge Report and listening to all these guys, and literally nothing that we had that we got from anybody else except from the guys in country was correct. Not one thing.
Yep.
So there's always a boogeyman. Always. Before you get there, when you're there, the boogeyman this time was 6,000 paratroopers going to parachute into the place where you're at. No, they're not. Like at Bungie Ranch. They said Death Force is going to halo in tonight. You don't know. Who told you that? Oh, the paint guy at Home Depot. Shut the fuck up. No, and so what it does is I refer to it to these guys as static. It's what's interrupting your information. It's not the information. And so I had the delicate position of not telling them, hey, disregard that shit. But listen, that's not what we should be concentrating on. So I had 2 friends with me that I want to keep as friends. And so it was a tenuous situation because everybody wanted to make a smart decision. All 3 of us. But operating with bad information is worse than no information.
Yeah, and so one of the things that James was excellent about saying, I can't answer these questions. If you don't want to go, let's go. We'll go back home now. And I'm not going to vote on this. You and Nate go. And then he would say, I'm just going to leave the room and you guys talk. And to do it again, I kind of wish he would have grabbed me and said, hey, man.
It wouldn't have worked.
It probably wouldn't have. But today, this was just like, look, I know what this is. And it's in because literally every single piece of information except for one was wrong. And the only one that was right was the guy that was in country telling us to come.
But the problem is, how am I going to tell you? You're talking to this tier 1 guy and that tier 1 guy. How am I going to convince you that I know more about what I'm talking about than they do?
Yeah, it would have been impossible at the time.
Right.
Yeah. Now I wish you'd have just been like, hey, man. I mean, like, to do it again now, if I was going back tomorrow, it wouldn't even be, I would just jump on the train. And
Of course.
That was such a mental exercise in clarity of decision making that I almost feel like I could, like squat in a heavy whatever. I feel like I could go into situations like that and be much more decisive.
So I will say this, and everybody will probably get their turn here on this one, but from the day that I got here, James would say, you all right? Yep, I'm okay. I don't feel stressed, but I could tell that my body's stressed because I'm not sleeping as much as I should, and I'm not eating. And so he would always say, hey, do you need to eat? And I'm like, no. And he'd be like, yeah, let's go eat. And then I would eat a bunch. But I didn't eat until somebody told me that I needed to eat, right? And so what that was telling me is that my body stress level, even though my mind was really clear and focused on it.
The subconscious mind is a motherfucker.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it literally was tearing my guts up. I didn't know.
Yeah, and back to like when we finally decided to get on the train.
Well, hold on, one thing. Before we leave Poland,
right.
we give a shout out to a boy, Adam.
Yes.
Okay, so Adam.
Don't say his last name.
I won't. Adam, you are going to listen to this, and we appreciate you and your family. You are now a part of the family, and we absolutely expect to see you here. We love you. We appreciate you. Adam literally gave up time, money. He was just amazing.
He was our logistics once we landed in Eastern Europe and didn't speak the language, didn't know the lay of the land. Yeah, we couldn't have done it without him.
Absolute superhero status. Like that guy, his beautiful wife, his wonderful children, his two ridiculous cats.
And he was already hosting some refugees
Yeah, that's what kind of guy he was.
from Odessa.
Yeah, he already had 2 Ukrainian refugees in his house that he was 2 females that he was hosting.
And here's one of the intangibles. They had us over for dinner that one night while we were there, and the Ukrainian woman, her husband was still in Odessa because they couldn't leave the country, but her and her mother were there, and the mother made us borscht, which is a traditional Ukrainian soup, and and then his wife made us dinner.
Delightful.
It was delicious, but it was just, people that were so grateful that we were there to help in any capacity, and they're like, "Here, I can make you soup," and that was very endearing, very humbling.
And
it was
her
delicious.
daughter, I'm almost ashamed to say this. Her daughter made me top 5 apple pies I've ever had in my life.
Oh yeah, homemade apple pie that I'd put up against any American apple pie.
Yeah, and to say a little bit more about Adam, while we were in country, he checked on us at least every other day, but I think probably every day.
In Ukraine.
In Ukraine, yep. He checked on us. He filled our cell phones up. He actually had to go out of his way. It took him about 4 days to get a package that I had sent. And he had to go down, go to the hotel, it wasn't there, go back, go to the hotel, wasn't there, go to UPS, argue with them, tell them that he was my representative, go pick it up, bring it back to his house, then take it down to the post office after work and send it to somebody else. And he always was just joyful to do it.
Yeah. So big shout. Thank you, Adam. All right. Now, celebrate stairs and trains.
The trains part of this saga. So my what I didn't realize is how narrow the hallways are on a sleeper car.
They're about 20 inches wide.
And so the big bad bag that you have that works to lug all your kit around in, all of a sudden it was too wide for the passageway in the train car. So I had to switch it, like rotate it.
When it sideways, it was still rubbing both sides of the wall.
And it was heavy.
Well, hold on. You're already on the train.
Yeah, we're going to go to the stairs
come
first.
On. No, hold on. No. We're going to get to the watch first. First off, they need some Germans over there running the trains. Nothing's on time, ever.
Yeah, by far.
That's number one. And here's the thing. I had 3 bags. He had 2 or 3. He had 2 or 3. That we had to go this route. All the ones guys described the route. We wouldn't know what platform the train was going to until it got there. What's that about? Yep. And then we'd only have 15 minutes to get on the train with our bags. And so there's no elevators, there's no carts, there's no luggage carts, and there's always stairs. So,
yeah, easy. Imagine having to go up 2 to 3 flights of stairs to get to the deck that your train's on.
Yeah, and so we first did this. We talked to some cops, and they let us back up the van. So first time we're on the train, they let us back. First, the train was like 3 hours late, right?
Yeah.
And so they let us back up the van, and we unloaded all of the bags. And so I'm thinking we had like 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 bags maybe, something like that. And so we're having to carry them up. So first down a long hallway, and then up this steep ramp of stairs, and then down a long platform to get to the train. And so first time we did this that already started the process was somebody asked us to help them, remember? So we were carrying a bunch of boxes for refugees up there. And then we came back down, got our stuff, and we had to make about 4 trips or 5 trips getting our stuff. And they let us on the train, and the train, we talked about how small the hallway was. Well, now picture the room is probably 6 foot by 8 foot, right? There's 3 sleepers in there. All of our gear is literally filled up the wall. Our gear filled up the entire room, and we had to mash in between it. In the midst of, we just walked.
Now, it sounds like it's a very spacious place, according to his description. Think walk-in closet. Don't think room. He's saying room.
Yeah, walk-in closet.
Like walk-in closet. Okay, with shelves. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. And so at this point in time, we're scared. We're sweaty. We're out of breath. And the train starts moving before we were like totally ready for it to move. Like we just barely got everything on there when they're ready to go. Yeah. And I remember being so hot, like I was overheating hot. And I was like, Nate, I need you to switch me seats for a minute. And I'm sure you were like, man, what an asshole. You're going to make me sit in the middle. But
Lean on the cold glass.
I just leaned on the cold glass. I was like, this is just so miserably hot.
Every time we got on a train, both going there and back, we were all sweating. It was a legit workout.
Don't jump ahead. Now, describe the train we're on.
Oh, geez. 1972 Soviet era sleeper car.
Yeah, Soviet, known for their comfort and
amenities.
Yeah, and so inside the car, there's, this, literally you could touch both sides with your hands, right? Our gear is on one side, and there's 3 bunks. And the bunks have, I don't know, maybe 2-inch pads on them. Like we could sleep anyway at that time, right? Mm-hmm. And so Nate got the top. I think, no, James, there was just 2 bunks, right?
Yeah, because our gear was all on the top
on the top, yeah. So James was sitting on like this weird little paddle stool.
Kind of like sleeping.
Yeah. And we would try to trade with him. He'd be like, no, I'm good right here. And
I knew they needed sleep.
Yeah. And so anyway, I just the walk-in closet, or the half of a walk-in closet that you would think of with all of our gear and all of us in there. So we start going and we get to Poland customs, right? I'm nervous, but the Poland people come in, and it's I don't know, kind of a pretty customs girl, right? Mm-hmm. And she started kind of giving us a hard time. Like, what was she saying? Like, why are you going? Where you? She could speak English a little bit.
We kept saying humanitarian.
Yeah, humanitarian, and they asked for documents, and then I think they went through your bag, right? Did she go through your bag?
Kinda.
It was always my bag. Every time it was my bag.
Every single time.
We forgot to tell about customs before we left JFK.
You guys, I have it here. You guys keep jumping ahead.
Dang it. We should go back to that.
We're going back right now.
All right, we got to go back. We're going to pick back up at leaving Poland customs.
Pretty Polish. No, I'm not leaving. Pretty Polish girl going through your drawers. Anyway, go ahead.
Looking at my skivvies. So we had about a 5-hour layover at JFK.
Wait, go before that. So we get to Nashville, and this lady tells us, go to the priority line. Well, we couldn't afford the priority tickets because they were $18,000 a piece.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 1,000. That wasn't a misspeak.
Yeah. So after taxes, $60,000 for us to fly over there, And so we go to the priority counter. The guy at the priority counter is mad at us until he finds out we're going to Ukraine.
Until he found out who told us to come over there.
Oh, yeah. And then, he said that James said it was that girl right there with the curly hair. And then he's like, oh. And then he found out we were going to Ukraine. And then he was mad they were charging us for the bags. But so instead of just putting our names on the bags, I just threw bags up, and they put Nate's name on my bag.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So now fast forward to go to where you were.
And oddly enough, we didn't have tickets for our last leg of the flight, but they were like, you'll get them when you get there. Remember that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got a 5-hour layover at JFK, and somebody had the idea of like, oh, we're at the duty free shop. Let's pick up some Jack Daniels.
That was my idea. Yeah.
For trade
gifts,
right? And then I was like, hey, maybe we should get some cartons of Marlboros too. And Yeager was like, nobody smokes anymore. They all vape. I've since learned this is Eastern Europe.
They smoke.
Everybody smokes.
Real men. They smoke cigarettes.
Baby smoke.
Yeah, everybody smokes.
Even the women smoke like real men. And if you got caught vaping in Ukraine, they would beat you up.
Yeah, with their man purse.
Yes.
and if you weren't a smoker, they kind of looked at you like, what?
Yeah. What do you don't smoke? Are you not a man? So in retrospect, we should have brought Marlboros, but so we.
But
you
they
know,
had Marlboros there.
They had weird cigarettes.
Yeah.
Like some of them were pink.
Like we took Jack Daniels because Jack Daniels is known throughout the world and it's from Tennessee.
Yeah.
Yes. So when you buy something at the duty free, you can't just take it with you. They put it in a sealed bag and they say, hey, it'll be waiting at your gate right before you get on the plane. So we killed a couple of hours and then we went over to a cafe and ate something. And then, it's like getting about that time we should start heading towards our gate. And I think I hear somebody say my name over the loudspeaker. And I was like, no. And then I hear it again. And by this time you had left and you were doing something on the phone. And I was like, it just occurred to me. I was like, oh, that it's probably the Jack Daniels. They need me to come pick it up. And so, like a doughy-eyed amateur, I just up to the gate, right? And they're like, "Oh, are you Nate Garrison?"
What else would you have done?
Well, like an amateur, I just walked up and I was like, "Hey, I'm Nate Garrison," and they're like, and the guy was like, "You're Nate Garrison?" And I was like, "Yes." He was like, well, these gentlemen would like to speak to you. And I looked and I was like, I just walked into
you motherfucker.
Yeah, rookie mistake. And but it was important because you know what, it sort of switched me on. Like, okay, I need to really pay attention to everything I'm doing from here on out because we're leaving the country. And so there were three customs agents, 2 male, 1 female, and they were like, "Hey, do you have your passport?" And I was like, "Yes." And they handed it to me, or I handed it to them, and they were like, "Hey, can we talk to you?" And it didn't seem like I had a choice in this, so I was like, "Sure." They were like, "Follow me." So they took me over to a corner, and hey, sit down here. So you sit down, and then 2 of them get on each side, and one in front of you, like, so you're surrounded.
I never thought any of this was going on with me.
and trying to intimidate me. And I was like, so then, the guy on my right, he starts talking to me. It was like, "Hey, so you're going over to Ukraine?" And I was like, I'm flying to Warsaw. And he was like, "Come on, you can be straight with me." And I was like, "Well, I mean, my final destination is Warsaw." And he just kind of back and forth. And finally he was like, "We went through your gear. We know everything." And I was like, I didn't give him a reaction. So I was like, "Oh, okay, well." And then, he asked some other questions.
The gear who's not his.
It was my gear. So I had an Ops Core helmet in there, Ops Core amps, armor plates, and a Cry JPC. And
yeah, I'm like, great. Now they think I wear women's underwear because my name is on Trey's bag, So they just hammered me with stuff, and finally, he would ask me these questions. I was like, well, if you know everything, shouldn't you know that answer? And they kept wanting to talk to me, and I was like, look, I'd really like to help you. I really would. I appreciate what you guys are doing. I know you're doing your job, but if we're going to keep talking, I think I need to talk to my lawyer first. And, oh, no, you don't need your lawyer. And then they'd switch and try and folksy a little bit and come back, and I was like, I'd really like to help you, but, and they asked me, and I made it clear to them. I was like, look, I'm not going over there to do anything illegal. I'm not an enemy of the state, and I'm not trying to end up in anybody's jail over there or over here. And then they were like, well, do you have any friends or anybody we can contact? Or just a bunch of questions, and I didn't really have time for it. But I was able to. They kept asking questions too, and I was like, well, why don't you? Because then they tipped their hand. They were like, well, we know who Jaeger is. We watch his YouTube channel. And so I was like, oh, they definitely know we're going to Ukraine then. I was like, so when they would ask for our plans, I was like, well, why don't you ask Jaeger? Because, he'd probably be a good guy to talk to about that.
Thanks, snitch.
Yeah, I'm like, well, what the heck? Snitches get stitches, Nate.
I'm not. It's not a snitch. I was just like, if I only let one person talk, then we don't have conflicting
Might as well
stories.
be Jaeger, right? Like,
Well, I mean, here's the thing. This isn't the first time the 5-0 have separated me. And, my parents did this to us at 5. I was like, I've been getting interrogated since I was 4 or 5 years old. Like, this isn't my first rodeo. So, pretend you're dumb. You don't know anything. And, that helps a lot.
So my story of the customs is a little different. I am not somebody who can just stand still and talk on the phone. I walk around while I talk on the phone. So I had been walking, and I think I had just went and got James an energy drink, and I had been walking, and I came back, and this was like nervous, right? And I heard him call all of our names. And so that's why I started walking up there. And I walked up and you were like, hey, I got to go. They called my name. And I'm like, yeah, they called all of our names, but you were already gone. And so where we were, like we had to walk around the corner and down, and I didn't see or hear what gate we were supposed to go to. So I'm trying to throw my stuff on real fast, and I'm running to try to get behind Nate, and then I lose him. And I'm like, crap, I guess they went left. So I went left, and I walked all the way down to the end of the terminal. And I'm like, oh, shoot, I don't see Nate or James anywhere, and I don't hear them calling my name. I'm going to miss this plane. Like, oh, I'm screwed. I don't know what gate it is. So now I'm walking back, and again, I'm pouring sweat because I got all this stuff, and I'm like hauling balls trying to get there. And then I hear them call my name again, and they said, this is where you go. So I'm like, okay, so I'm walking up, and I remember catching out of the corner of my eye, James was sitting down talking to people, and I'm like, okay, like, it's no big deal. I just got to go here and get my ticket. And then the guy at the counter was like, are you Trey? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, this guy wants to talk to you. And I looked up, I was like, you got me. So then we walked, and I seen you and them talking to you. And so mine was a little bit different because the customs agent was like, there were two of them, and he's like, hey, can I see your passport? I showed him my passport. And I said, are you really a cop? And he's like, yeah. And he showed me his badge. And he was like, that's James Jaeger right there? I said, yeah. He said, you with him? I said, yeah, I'm here with James. He's right there. He said, yeah, I watch his YouTube channel a lot. I said, yeah, you watch my YouTube too? And he was like, no, I didn't know who you were. I said, well, let me tell you something, man. I'm the last American outlaw. You better start watching my YouTube. And so he's like, okay, cool. And so he's like, what are you going to go do over there? I said, I'm going to Warsaw. He said, are you going to Ukraine? I said, I don't have any plans to go to Ukraine, but I might. I said, is it illegal? And he said, no. And he said, where are you actually from? I said, I live in Lubbock. I grew up in New Mexico. And he said, hey, I went to the academy there in Artesia. I said, that's crazy. And I said, do you know this guy? He's like, yep. I said, you know this guy? Yep. I said, oh, I shoot with all of those guys. I've been shooting with them long range for, I don't know, 8 or 9 years. He's like, no kidding. How's he doing? And we just went back and forth on this for like, I don't know, 5 minutes. And then we talked about why he had to live in New York and how he wanted to go back to West Texas or New Mexico. And then we got up, and he's like, okay, man. I said, hey, what do you want to know? And he's like, I don't know, just keep your eyes out for something cool. He said, you mind if I stop you on the way back? I was like, I don't care. I said, are you going to subscribe to my YouTube? He's like, yeah. I was like, whatever. So then we walk back up, and James is in line, and I'm in line. He's like, you think it'd be okay if I shake James's hand? I said, yeah, go get a picture with him. And he's like, okay. And so we stand there, and for a little bit, and then he's like, I got to go. And then he walked around, and then he stopped and looked.
No, it's cut to me now.
Okay.
So some guy who I don't know who he is walks up to me with a big smile on his face. Hey, I just want to meet you. I'm like, okay.
And he's like, I'm sorry for wasting your time.
Meanwhile, these guys are sweating me. They're waterboarding me over in the corner of the terminal. And I was like, geez, guys.
So the guys that got me, they said, we want to talk. They said, am I under arrest? I said, no. And I said, now listen, I know you can lie to me as federal agents. That's fine. But I want to ask you a question to see if you'll lie to me. I said, are you building a case against me? And they said, no. I said, okay, you're telling the truth. And they said, how do you know? I said, I know shit. And so we talked, and where you going? I'm going to Ukraine, fucking train people, fucking kill Russians, whatever that, He said, what do you know about the Azov battalion? I said, I've heard people mention that, but I have no idea what that is. I didn't know what it was. Apparently, it's not. Jeez.
Yeah,
But
we got a good explanation that'll
Yeah.
come later.
and anyway, it was pretty cordial.
Yeah, they were nice to me. This is not Nate, man. They were hammering Nate.
Yeah. So at one point they were like, "Oh, well, will you tell us this?" And I forget all the details, but I do remember telling them, I was like, "Look, guys, you have badges. That means you do not have my best interests in mind." So
It's because you were combative.
I was so respectful, because here's the other thing. I was like, I know I plan to come back, and these people, if I'm an asshole, they're gonna make notes on my file.
Spoiler alert. Only one of us had to talk to the cops on the way back.
That's what you get when you're an asshole to them.
Right? But
And that's what you get for having a sweet helmet.
right. So I did tell them, because they were like, "Oh, will you talk to us?" I was like, I'll tell you what. You guys come to Camden and train, and I'll tell you anything you want to know about our trip." And then the one guy, he was like this short little guy, he was like, "Well, I was a Marine and blah, blah, blah." And he was like, "Well, we do training too." And I looked at him and I said, "Qualification is not the same as training." To which the other two agents kind of laughed. They're like, "Yeah, that's kind of what we do." I said, "Y'all should come down and train."
Okay, now we jump back to the Soviet train.
Yes, Poland. It's dark now. They're coming on. The Polish customs. They're going to stamp our passports before we cross over the border, and they want, what are you doing? Oh, humanitarian. Then they look around and they're like, "Oh, that one. That's Nate. That's yours, right? Yeah, bring it down. We want to see inside."
The biggest bag we have.
And also, it's camouflage. So if anybody said, what is, at this point, this is one of the things that I would change. I would not ever have camo anything going in and out to an area.
Yes.
Nothing.
Yeah.
It depends. Sometimes, if people know you're in the military, it is helpful. Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very true. And it's hard to know that going in.
Yeah.
And so I had to unzip that thing, and they just rifle through everything, and you're like, great, now I got to pack all this stuff, and I'm sitting on it now because now it won't pack the way it did in the beginning. And so we did that, and then the train starts moving, and then it stops.
A short distance.
Right, a short distance. It stops, and we're like, okay, well, we're now in Ukraine. And because we had our phones, and we're trying to let Google Map, like, where are we? Also, we were not far from the Belarus border either. And we're like, wait, what's going on?
Yeah, because this wasn't the train that we were told to take. We were told to go to Lviv and take the train. But we went out of Warsaw and took that train
Because it was direct.
And in retro, like we did good getting through there, but they shut that route down because it was too dangerous. Like they shut down all of the windows and wouldn't let us look out the windows. And we were the only car on the train.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we were sold the false bill of goods. We were told there was a dining car. No, there was the engine and us.
Yeah.
Right. So early on, I was like, well, it's cramped in here. I'm going to go find this dining car. So I go to the end of the car I've never walked through cars on a moving train, but we're going to check this off. And I get to the end of the car and I look out and I was like, we're the last car. Oh, maybe the dining car is up at the front. So I walked to the front and I was like, that's the engine.
And he sees the guy scooping the coal in this Soviet piece of shit.
And I was just like, this is a 1-car train. Oh my gosh, what? So fast forward, Polish, now we're in Ukraine, and they stop it, and they always come through, and they're like, okay, who are you? Let's see your passport. What are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And they go through the whole entire train. You're like, oh, okay, that's cool. Then somebody else comes through, and then they just start taking your passports.
Wait, so when we first got on, we brought yellow tape because the Ukrainians had yellow tape on their arms.
Bands.
When we got on that train at that time, this guy is there and he has a AK slung sideways and he's in a full uniform and he calls somebody else up asking for documents and passports because they can't say it, but they got blue bands. So now in my head, am like, this is the Russians. They have stopped us. I'm about to die right here, helpless. So I've got my knife in my hand, and I didn't have my big winkler because we were talking about being able to stab Russians on the train with winklers. I just had my Hogue knife that James gave me in my hand, and I'm like, I'm going to put it in my shirt right here to where if I have to grab this really fast, I can grab it and stick one of these dudes. And I'm like, yeah, the Russians just caught us, and we ain't even been in here 10 minutes.
But more to your point, leading up to that. So they come through and they ask us what we're doing. Then somebody else comes through and they just take everybody's passport and then they get off the train. And we're like, okay, now what? Now the train starts backing up. Who knows how long?
This is weird.
Yeah. And we're just like, okay, we're not sure because...
It backed up for miles.
Yes. And then at some point... We're like, hey, Trey, peek through the window.
Hold on just a second. I thought they were backing up to Poland to kick us off the train. I did.
Without our passports.
Yeah, I did.
And then we start moving forward. At some point, you're just like, I don't remember how far we've backed up or going forward. And so we're like, hey, Trey, peek out and take a look. The train was pulling inside of a building. I don't mean up to a train station or next to a building. We were now inside of a building. Our one-car train without our passports in the middle of the night. And we're like, this is the part where they come in and arrest us. And we're going to have to stab our way to an AK, shoot our way while 30 cal rounds are coming through the paper-thin wall. So, this is where it happens.
Yeah, and so they had made us shut the windows because we were in, we really were in Russian.
Shut the shades.
The shades, yeah. And so I had opened it. I was on the bottom bunk, and I opened it like 2 inches. And so we could hear all kinds of people out there, and I could see them moving. Yeah, and I was like, oh, yeah, this is it. Like, we're going to die here helpless or just fight our balls off until we... And so...
Turns out, they were just changing the wheels on the train.
Yeah. But nobody told us this.
Yeah. And they couldn't because they didn't speak English anyway.
Why are they changing the wheels? Because the Russians have a different rail size. There's 500 rumors of why, but they have a different rail size than every other country in the world. And so they swapped engines and then swapped the wheels on the car we're in underneath. This took hours and hours.
Yeah, I think it took 4 hours, right?
Yes. And so, if you can imagine, we weren't bouncing off the walls freaking out, but there was a adrenaline stress dump waiting for, the unknown. And then it doesn't happen, and you're like, it's not even like I got to take a nap. You're just like, you pass out.
Yeah, that's when I actually passed out. I was like, James, do you want to lay on this bottom bunk? He's like, no, I'll just stay here. And I feel bad that you're sitting in the chair and I'm not, went away, and I was gone.
Yeah. And then you might stir an hour or so later and you're like, I'm still alive. Back to bed. And so we wake up, who knows, literally almost 4 hours later, and they're bringing us our passports. They're now stamped in Ukraine and we're moving. Now, remember, all of this time has elapsed. We're now been on the train for at least 6 hours.
And we've moved less than 100 miles.
In a room the size of a walk-in closet with all of our gear.
And it was either way too hot in the train when it was moving, but at that point in time, they turned everything off because they unhooked the engine, and it was so cold. It was freezing cold. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yeah, I could say that was like... I was telling, I don't know now what else in life I can be afraid of. I was so afraid then, literally, so afraid that, not afraid, afraid that I didn't know what was coming next, right? We're usually afraid when we don't understand what's coming. And I was afterwards, to hear James, he's like, no, I just thought they were going to send us back home. I wasn't worried. And I'm like, why didn't you say that? Because I thought we were about to get we were going to be fighting, and this was it.
Nobody said they were scared. That's the problem. Hang out with a bunch of fucking Type A motherfuckers and nobody says shit. I was just like, whatever. I'm taking a nap. I don't care.
Yeah. And I'm preparing to kill these people. And I'm like, okay, all right. I think Nate and I had talked about you pull them down, I'll stab them, right? Like I have this all, and I'm sitting there waiting, and every bump move, I'm like, all right, I'm about to kill you. I'm about to kill you. And I'm glad I didn't. This is
I am too.
This is about 1 of 4 times I'm glad I didn't kill somebody
Now
in this trip.
For me, there's this other caveat to the story, and that is none of my family know where I'm at this point in time.
Right.
And part of it was because there was so much I had to get done. Most of my friends don't know.
Let me give you some advice. If you're a person that doesn't want to be on social media, don't hang out with me and Trey. It's like it's like you can't. You can't. It doesn't work.
Yeah, either that or we're going to leave you out of everything that we do.
No, you can't.
Yeah, it's just not possible, Nate. I mean, come on, Longbeard.
I know. I get it.
Yeah.
Kind of. Not
so
really.
I was prepared in every which way to kill one of these, what at the time I thought was a Russian, but was a Ukrainian. And I'm glad I didn't do it. But yeah.
Because they all talk the same to us. It's like they're talking backwards.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like.
It's a language that after being there a month, I still don't even pick up on any key phrases.
No.
Have no idea.
Correct.
All right, what's the next part? Okay,
So we keep moving.
we meet an American.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. And as soon as he started talking, I was like, guys, this is Cobra.
Cobra.
Yeah, it's a
Cobra, my buddy.
His friend, I know him.
Same person at like the way he talked, his disposition, and he was a dog breeder / trainer. And for some reason, he was out of Southern California, but for some reason, it was more productive as a business to breed the dogs.
Let's not get into his. They're not listening for dog breeding.
Okay, well, but it was cool to have another English-speaking person who
Had been
in
there
and
a
out.
bunch, right?
Yes.
Pre-war, post-war, he had been there a couple of times.
And so the probably the most interesting part was when he was trying to decide if he was going to jump off the train at a certain point.
Yeah,
And the reason why doesn't matter. It was a real thing because his people were leaving Kyiv, and he was like, they're already en route back out to a different country. I'm looking on my phone. Hey, guys, do you think it's a safe idea to jump off the train at what speed so I can link up?
Trey happens to know something about that.
Yeah, so you can get on and off of a train safely at 19 miles an hour. At 20, it pulls you under the car and you die, right? But on and off safely at 19 miles an hour, and 19 as if everything is perfect, right? And he kept saying, so I taught him how to get off the train, right? It's like, all right, you put this foot here, you put this foot here, and you start running when you hit the ground. And so we were out there, we're counting telephone poles, and I'm like, all right, I'll open the door, I'll help you, we'll try to get. And I was like, bro, this is not a good idea. It's going too fast. He's like, but I think I can do it. I'm like, it's 20 degrees. We're in Russian occupied territory. You want to jump off of a train in the middle of nowhere and you're going to get hurt. You may live, but you're going to break your legs, bro.
Yeah, and how far is it to limp to the next hospital in wherever land?
Yeah, so about the time he decided we could see the highway of where his guys were going to be, like we could see it maybe 300 meters away. We were doing about 50, and he's like, I think I can get off. I'm like, no, you can't. No. You cannot get off.
But the point to the story is we are now living in a reality where considering the option of jumping off of a moving train was a thing.
Yeah, and the reason why that started to be a thing is because when we were there, they had just got bombed. Kiev had just got bombed, and they put the city on a 48-hour lockdown. And so in my mind, I realized in everybody's mind this wasn't the same, but that guy, Chris, who's a great guy, he said, look, man, judging off the news that I have, don't be here longer than 72 hours. And a bunch of my friends said, I had one friend, Mike, who was like, dude, I think you can go in there and just take a look at it. If it's bad, leave in 72 hours. But he's like, you can just go. Don't worry about it. Everybody else was like, you shouldn't go. And so I had made up my mind I was willing to stay for 72 hours. I was like, I'm going to go. I'm going to stay 72 hours. Oh, now they're locking us down and we can't move. And we're going to be at the train station in Russian occupied territory. I'm not getting off
There was a 7 p.m. curfew. And here's another thing you have to understand. So if you looked at the city of Kyiv like it's a clock, the Russians had surrounded that city from 6 o'clock all the way back counterclockwise to about 8 o'clock. So the only open was from 6 to 8. And that was our plan, was like, hey, we got to come down from the south and go north and get into the city before they close it off.
Now, again, I wasn't much help. Everybody talked about within 72 hours the city was going to be surrounded. And all I could hear was, oh, the city's not surrounded. Now, what I'm saying is, when I was in Baghdad, it was surrounded 24/7 the whole time I was there forever. All I knew was surrounded. So going in this place, it was mostly surrounded. Wasn't a big deal.
Yeah, and for me, I was like, they're going to surround us, and then we're not going to be able to get out of here. What I didn't realize is, we knew that it was a big city, but now understanding that it takes up like the land mass of like Dallas-Fort Worth area, like it
Size of New Jersey.
Yeah, it takes like 50 minutes from one end to the other in no traffic. In traffic, it's a couple hours, but in no traffic, 50 minutes in either direction of driving 75 miles an hour, and you're still in the city. But we didn't know. I mean, we knew that, but you didn't get the gist of it until you were there. So surrounding them, they were still a long ways from us.
And there was another part that kind of weighed on me in the back of my mind is I wear a medical device. And so before we left, I was just like, how many of these do I need to bring, right? I don't think it's a big secret. So I have an ostomy bag. And so I have to change it every so many days. And it's always something I think about when we go out, like, I have to empty it. So that was a unique experience. First time I had ever emptied an ostomy bag on a moving train. So I was just like, all right, we're doing this now. This is interesting. And so I had a significant doctor appointment that I had to be back in the States for in a matter of months. And so that was also part of it. Like, hey, if they surround it, we might not be able to get out. But I figured if we can't get out, I've got more immediate concerns than a doctor appointment. Because I was pretty sure, I was like, I brought enough medical supplies to last quite a few months. And if I don't, then, we'll figure it out then.
Yeah, so, okay. So anything else about training?
Yeah, so one of the things that was significant to me was like the water from the minute we left was, bubbly water, sparkling water, which I hate. Carbonated water, or the other option was flat water that tasted horrible. Well, we did not think, so we thought the train ride was going to basically be, we're going to, ride all night, get up in the morning, be there mid-morning and be fine. Well, it ended up that the train ride was like 26, 27 hours, something like that. We didn't have any food, and the conductor gave us one bottle of water for the three of us to share.
Well, our contact had sent us with a bag full of food, and it was delicious.
I don't even remember it.
Yeah.
Oh, you ate it all.
Well, I didn't eat it all, but well, I'll say this: we were kind of also stressed to the point where eating wasn't.
Yeah, I wasn't hungry, but I was thirsty. I remember there was a couple of times I was like, my throat is so dry that I have to drink something. And at that time too, so this is where it started. So everybody that watches the YouTube videos, one of the things that you guys don't get is those YouTube videos are behind what we were actually there. So I didn't violate any OPSEC, and I was filming those like I wasn't sick as those YouTube videos make me look. Like some of you guys are chewing me out for getting everybody sick, but I was in the beginning of getting
he did.
I did, but I was in the beginning of getting sick right there. And so I my nose was messed up. I was starting to lose my voice. I didn't have any water, and that started this. You guys weren't sick yet, but I had got sick somewhere on the flight over from Poland. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, the water thing really sucked.
And so we arrive at the train station. I'm like, hey, I guess they didn't pay their power bill. When there's air raids afoot, nobody turns the lights on at night. And so I knew that, but making a joke. But so we get there, and it's all these bags and Lexa, our friend, who's a big, strong guy, stayed in the van and sent a petite woman and an older guy to come and help us with our bags.
Oh, wait. Before we go there, one more thing. 2 hours outside, or 2 stops outside of Kiev, that the other American told us we should get off the train. And Nate and I had made up our mind we were going to get off. And James was like, we shouldn't get off this train right now, guys. And
yeah, and we had, fortunately, we had been a couple places where we had enough signal to text and even to some point voice talk with our contact in Kyiv. And to sort of reassure us, he was like, I know it seems sketchy because what we were considering was we get off at the next stop, we sit there and we wait for the next train out of Kyiv, right?
The reason why they were talking about getting off was the curfew. They thought that the curfew would mean they couldn't leave the town or...
Yeah, we were going to be stuck at the train station, 3 Americans with 3 knives and
we
a
didn't,
bunch of bags that told what we were doing there.
Yeah, we didn't know we had passwords, but that would have been a critical mistake to get off the train there. Like, that would have completely changed all the dynamics of this. Trains weren't going the other way like we thought. We weren't going to be able to get one.
Yeah, just so you know, you weren't getting off the train.
Yeah.
No,
and they didn't stop long enough for us to. Like,
and we would have been essentially behind the lines.
It would have been a huge mistake. We would have been, I mean, who knows what would have happened, but we would have been in Russian-occupied territory with no friends, not speaking the language, no place to stay, no place to eat, and no money. No guns. Yep. That would have been gigantic. No CCW stuff. And that would have been a big mistake.
Which goes back to our point from earlier. You have to listen and consider the information you have from trusted, verifiable sources and make the decisions off of that. You can't theorize and pontificate about unknowns. You make bad decisions if you do that.
So now we get to Kiev, dark, we're carrying the bags out. The lady, can you pronounce her name correctly?
It started with a G.
Galena.
It was Galena, yeah. I just called her a race car driver, but Galena.
But this chick who's a former race car driver and fucking back, she's like out of a fucking movie. This attractive lady, short hair, like La Femme Nikita, you know, like just a bad.
With her shutska.
Yeah.
Suchka, yeah. And I remember, so when we got off of this train now, we had to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 flights of stairs and then go flat and come down 6. And there was some older ladies there and she couldn't carry her bag up. So I had somebody had my roller bag. So I had my backpack and my other bag and I pulled hers up the stairs.
Let me jump in here. In the Ukraine, chivalry is dead.
Oh, yeah, totally dead.
So go ahead.
Yeah, she could not believe that I was carrying her bag up there. And I carried it the whole way. And I mean, at this time, I'm still super stressed, right? Like, now we're in a war zone. We could hear the bombs going off now.
And he still took time to help with the old stranger.
Yeah, and I did. I mean, I wasn't trying to get any, but I carried him all the way up the stairs for her. Then somebody up there got him and carried him down for her. But the flights of stairs were, they were brutal.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're getting the ambulance.
And before we did, that's when we first met in
Lex,
person, Lex. Oh man, that was such a relief, you know, to see and meet another American.
Make sure we weren't getting catfished.
Yeah.
And so what was real funny is the American that was there with us, Chris, helped us carry out some bags.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And good dude. He's a good dude. Anyway, helped us carry out bags. Well, Lexo is fully kitted out, all in black helmet, black mask, black multicam, like totally black, just, you know, operator jumps out of this ambulance, scares the shit out of Chris. Like, he's like, oh, I'm dead.
Yeah. And he was like, hey guys. And it felt so good to see and hear another American, another alumni who That's something that we don't always talk about. There's would it be wrong to say that as a alumni, there's a certain privilege you enjoy,
yeah.
but there's also a responsibility.
Yes, hand in hand.
And that was definitely in play. And so that was just like, a little bit of relief. Okay, there's a mutual understanding.
Yeah.
So this at this point is not a mutual understanding for me. Okay. When I'm still there, right, I have not met Lex. I am new to the tactical response. I mean, I've been watching James since like 2010, but I'm new to the alumni because everybody's like, I keep saying this alumni. I'm like, look, I know you, the culture of loyalty around tactical response is second to none that I've seen. Like, maybe to my group growing up as, what we did. But, and so everybody's like, well, he's alumni. I'm like, I don't care. Like, I don't even know what that means. He went to your class. Who cares? You know what I mean? And so, I get there and I'm super skeptical of them all. I'm like, I don't know how to, and then, yeah, as we get going and the race car driver is now driving us like, foom, foom, foom. And I'm still like, okay, I don't have a gun. I'm in a war. The bombs are going off everywhere. And now Lexo's talking and I start to calm down a little bit, right? Still much on my toes, but I start to calm down.
Mm-hmm.
So we get in the truck and take off. And I'm not trying to sound like this old hat, but, I've done this before. And so we're going through the chicanery. You got to have the J too, but as you can.
That you can.
Stop passwords and stuff like that, checkpoints and all that is common. And so I just felt kind of reassured by it all. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but like it was familiar. This is the first familiar thing since we left home.
Right. And at that point it was like, we're here, so we're all in. There was no room for self-doubt or second guessing or putting your big toe in and pulling it out. Like, nope, we're in.
And one of the things that we had
This
talked
is happening.
about was it had been since World War II when an American would erode the train in that European area to go fight. And so to have, of course, not the same experience, but at least as close to the same experience as what my grandfathers and my uncles would have had, my great uncles, was, I don't know, surreal, cool, honor. It was something that I'll remember forever as an important event that happened in my life because nobody's done that since the 40s. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So shortly after that, we can speak about precisely where we were.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
They're
Okay.
gone.
Yeah. So we pull up to a post office.
And they say you can't turn on any lights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they go into this like warehouse. I don't think we understood it's a post office yet, but it's like this loading dock, open this warehouse door, and then a bunch of dudes come out to help us with our bags. They don't speak English or it's very broken. And they, kind of see us three dudes in the dark. And immediately they just come out shaking our hands. And
Everybody shakes hands every time you meet, every day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Every single person.
And so we lug all of our gear in, and we're
Now,
kind
they
of,
helped us all at that point. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so that was nice. And so we find ourselves inside of this post office, and they're like, "This is where we're living," but they immediately made sure that, like, "Hey, you need to eat." So they brought us in.
Wait. So first, they're like, "You can leave your gear here," and I was like, "I don't know if I want to leave my gear here. You guys gonna take my gear?" You know what I mean? Because still, we don't know anybody.
And so Trace, that guy you take to a party that puts his dick in the mashed potatoes, like, why do we bring him?
Yeah. So anyway, I did after I seen everybody left their guns. So yeah, then go to the food part.
So I don't remember. Did we get rifles before
First,
food?
yes.
Oh yeah. So that I'll tell you what, guys. If you've never gotten into some other dude's country in the middle of the night under weird conditions. And then they're like, hey, come over here. And then pull over a blanket and just see a stack of AK-74s. And they're like, grab one.
As big as this table.
Yes.
Yeah, but before that, so before we got guns, right? We go in and they give us hot tea, I think, right? Or water. They give us something to drink.
Mm-hmm.
And then the general comes in. And
yes, that's true.
Yep, the general comes in after we met everybody and Lexo's translating for us, and then we had to do introductions as to who we were. So James stands up first, gives his introduction.
Not an introduction. We were being interviewed.
Yep. So first we all shake his hand, and then James stands up and he asks James, like James has to give him his background, and then he shakes James' hand and says, "Welcome."
No, it goes through all three.
Oh yeah, he did go through all three of us.
And he was like, I'm James. I like to party.
And then Trey said, I'm sure I was right. You don't party. I'm the only one.
I'm the one that party. Anyway, so then afterwards, after we all three did that, then the general shook our hands and said, "Welcome."
Yeah.
Then they said, "Okay, let's go in here and get your guns."
Yeah, because there was. Did you say how they were like, okay, this is what we were here to do? And he was like, but if you need to fight, are you willing to fight?
That's what he asked us. Yeah, if because we and we're like, well, yeah. I mean, we're going to defend ourselves. And then
it's better than the alternative, right?
We go in this other room and they pull out a white piece of paper, like a printer sheet, and they said, "Hey, put your date of birth and a nickname down. Don't put your real name down." I'm like, "Why? We're signing for a gun." I'm like, "All right." So I put
I put no real shit on there.
No, I put the Fat Hobbit, and I put my birthday.
I didn't use a real birthday.
Yeah. And what did you put?
I put my name. I was like,
They said not to put your name.
I know, but
Here's my name, date of birth, social, my home address.
I didn't give
cell
all that
phone
information,
number.
but they were like,
Blood
put
type.
a nickname. I was like on the spot. I was like,
Nate.
Death Merchant. I was like, that one's already taken, I'm sure, by some keyboard commando. I don't know what's his Nate.
So now then they take us into the basement, and
This is less than 20 minutes from our arrival.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
they take us into the basement and they say, "Hey, we can only give you 3 magazines." I'm like, "That's bullshit. Give me them." And then so they gave us 3 deals of ammo, and then they said, "Go ahead and pick your gun." And James really did. He said, "Just give me the one on the top." And then so this guy Sig was there. He's a Canadian sniper. He's like, "Get the one with the plastic handle." So I just reached down and grabbed one. And then Nate goes fishing through them for like 30 minutes to get the prettiest one.
Yeah. 'Cause the first rifle I picked up had the plastic forend and a wood stock, and I was like, that doesn't match. Like, everybody knows rule number 1 is always look cool. I was like, this is not cool. So I fished through now if I could have gotten both synthetic stock and foregrip, that would have been legit. But I was also like, let me get the wood finish. So I dug one out and was like, this would look cool.
Yeah. So we go back upstairs and we're loading our magazines. And I guess I don't know why this was something that caught my attention, but they were all watching me load my magazine, like watching my hands. And so I'm in there paying attention with my head
I can tell you
up.
why.
Why?
Because when we load mags, we have 4, 5, 6 rounds and go snap, snap, snap. They get one click, one click, one click.
See, I was something I was wondering. Like, I just pulled them in my hand and I'm loading them. I'm looking at everybody because I still don't trust anybody. And now I'm like, I got a gun right now. If I get these bullets in here, if something happens, I can get this working. You know what I mean? And so they're all watching me, and I'm like, why are you guys? But that makes sense
No,
because
that's why.
yeah. And I loaded them really fast, and then
Hey, where's that Lula loader? You got my loader? That I put in your bag.
no, you left it there. It's in Lexo's bag.
Oh, that son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Lexo, bring that to me.
Yeah, Lexo, you're gonna have to bring that back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then they take us up to our sleeping quarters, which is an office. Like, all right, this is where you're sleeping, and Trey busts out and inflates what turns out to be the loudest
it was
sleeping
a super loud
pad.
exo pad.
every
Exopad.
time you rolled over in the night, it was just like brr, 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 brr.
So-
it woke everybody up, and I was like, God, Trey,
Just
come
in case y'all wanted to know what that was, the Chris Costa walked in and James had to hug him.
But he cries.
Oh,
He's a big crier.
he cries a lot. Yeah, I see him crying over there. I can't tell you how many times that I was like, is this Chris Costa with me? Oh, no, it's Nate.
I was like, I'm way more handsome.
Anyway, yeah, I really did. That Exopad was the loudest pad, and I tossed and turned on it all night. And we're in the top floor, and the windows are open, and James had just told us that the boxes need to be in the window, but there was no boxes for us. And you can just hear them bombing all night. Boom, boom. And I'm like, it was a toss and turn night. It was so loud, and I'm glad I kept you up.
Did you get the air raid yet?
No. So, yeah. So these two dudes, I guess they were the roaming watch, come up and they're banging on the door, motioning for us to, like, go.
Yeah, and what time was this? Like, we had been asleep for a while. It was early in the morning.
Maybe 2 hours. They don't speak English. We don't speak whatever they're speaking. And we're like, oh, I think we need to go with these guys. I think it's an air raid. So I just threw some shoes on, grabbed my rifle.
So I didn't think that at all.
You were getting kidded.
Because they had just said they thought that the Russians were going to drop paratroopers down. So I'm throwing on my...
So I knew what was going on. So I didn't get my rifle, and they're getting your shit. I'm like, we're going to shoot a goddamn missile out of the sky?
I had no idea. So I've got my plate carrier on. I got my helmet on. I'm going downstairs. I'm loading my gun. And
all I could think was...
He was clearing
you know why you
corners
don't
on the
fight
way.
in the basement?
and so that was the one and only time I used that helmet. But and so we go down there, and there's two other dudes like cuddled up down there
Because it was cold.
Because it was cold.
It was a legit bomb shelter, but it was freezing.
Yeah. And then we start walking back up, and I look, and there's this gigantic man, and he's got 3 espressos. I'm like,
Yeah, 3 espressos.
why? Or I still don't know why we're down here. I'm like, why are we down here? I don't understand what you were saying. And he spoke a little English, Shrek.
Yep.
And then from that point, I was like, okay, you're giving us, you were up here making espressos while we were hiding down there.
I think the night guard was lonely.
Just wanted to hang out with us.
But at the same time, I was just like, guys, our first air raid in Ukraine, and we got espressos. If that doesn't make this memorable and a little bougie, I don't know what does.
So the misinformation continued. The first one was 6,000 paratroopers are coming. And
I think that was the next night.
yeah, but
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
And so that was the night that I slept in my clothes. I slept in my boots. I slept with my rifle right beside me. And I think I did that 2 nights before I was like, screw it. If the Russians are going to land here, I'm just going to get my clothes on. Like, I'll have time.
So then we moved.
We went across the street.
We moved into a sports complex. And so every time we say something at a post office or sports complex, don't think about the U.S. Think about 1980 Soviet Union.
Yes.
Yeah. And so they first said, hey, we need whoever is the sniper to come with us. And so I was
Me and Nate went,
and I'm like, all right. And so now I'm with a bunch of people that don't speak my language at all. And I'm like, I don't know what they're trying to do to me here. Like, but it's cool. I got a gun now.
he thought that until the day we
I
left.
did. I thought it till the day we hit Poland. I was like, I'm going to kill somebody here because they're
He's looking at
4
us
times.
like,
I'm glad I didn't kill them. But so we went there, and then the first thing we did when we opened the door, they're like, all right, just to let you know, this place probably has booby traps. So one of our guys opened the door, and the grenade blew up. And we had seen the guy, and there was shrapnel all up his leg. And I was like, oh, yeah, the grenade did blow up right here. And so now they're like, go open all these doors. I'm like, you go open those doors. So we went and cleared the whole rest of the building, and there was no more grenades that we could find. They said there might be a grenade on the top of the roof because there was the spy or whatever on the top. So we never went to the top. So guys, if you own that sports complex, maybe you don't want to go to the top of your roof anymore.
So let's talk about the training. And the first thing is the culture. the culture of
man.
them as far as safety. Let's talk about at the beginning.
If you're listening to this podcast, you're already slightly different than most, but how much we take for granted the common, what we consider common knowledge.
Now, before you go too far with that, in Iraq, U.S. soldiers with unloaded guns do the same stuff the Ukrainians do.
So I got so used to, like, first negligent discharge I heard, you're like, whoa, what is that? Are we fighting? And then there was one that happened in the room with us, and
What was that?
Sergey shot his
Sergey.
In the room?
in
wasn't
the floor
room with
below
him.
us,
Yeah.
in the floor below us, and
And then we hear the Jew over the radio yelling loud,
Yeah.
and you and me in the middle of the night,
I'm
we're
like,
like, we just heard
Lexo, wake up and listen to this
we
radio.
heard a couple of gunshots. There's a Russian-speaking dude that we know, like frantic on the radio, and we're like bringing the radio to Lex and shaking him like, what's happening? And he's just like, somebody got drunk and shot some stuff.
No, that was a different night. That was a different night.
That was later.
This was Sergey just unloading his gun. Yeah.
Yes, this was Sergey was a night before, but we were just like, we're all amped up now. But Lex understood everything, so he just rolls over, goes back to bed. You and I are still looking at each other. I'm like, well, I'm making a cup of tea because I can't go to sleep right now.
Yeah,
I thought this was when it happened.
Yeah. So negligent discharges happened so much that when gunshots or bombs would go off, by the time we left, we didn't flinch, didn't look, and it didn't break conversation because they happened so much. And so, yeah.
Wait, time. So the culture going in, muzzles everywhere, fingers, all that stuff.
Yeah, you got flagged 30 times getting food in the kitchen.
So from everybody, it was just what they did. It's how they carried their gun, and
They pick up their rifles by the sling and carry it
Like a
it's
purse.
like it's a purse or a portable arm shelf. Like, oh, this is how I rest my arm.
and it's common practice for them to pull the trigger. And so I was always like, anytime they're pulling the trigger, like cringing that is this thing gonna go off, because you just never know. You know what I mean? But yeah, their gun safety was non-existent, and this is from the most experienced, hardened hero soldiers that they had.
Hold on a second. Now, it was laying on them. Any number of times I've seen U.S. soldiers rack the slider, rack the bolt, take a mag out, and go pow, just like them.
Oh yeah. No, I'm not saying that, but yeah.
Well, and that's why I say, if you're listening to this podcast, you likely are, hopefully, and if you're not, please come and get training, upgrade that software. You're probably a little bit different than the average bear when it comes to gun safety. Because, yeah, we've got guys that are familiar with guns and gun experts, and that, they sight in their shotgun once a year for deer season, and they're like, oh, I've been shooting all my life.
So we begin training, and so the first thing is asked if we could do stuff without ammo. Yeah, we can do that. So we came up with, on the fly, we had no prior, we literally wrote this on a scrap paper for the first class and did it and went, hey, that went okay, right? You know? And so we wound up with a 10 hours?
Yes, but what we focused on initially was about a 6-hour block.
But we came up with 10 hours of dry, significant skill building dry drills.
Yep.
But yeah, the first 6 hours were the bread and butter.
And it started with the 4 safety rules all the way to some like dipping into small unit tactics movement.
Yeah, and so understanding some of these people had been at war since 2014. All of them had problems loading their magazines at first.
No,
loading their guns. And then most of them had problems keeping their finger off the trigger.
Well, they had never done the magazine release that I teach with the using the new mag to release the old mag. They had never done.
Yeah,
that.
they had never done that, and they were so. Another thing that they hadn't done was they just didn't have the culture like probably those of you who are listening to this about guns. So they're intelligent people, but with the language barrier and them not having the culture of guns, it just I want to say maybe it's James will correct me on this one. Athleticness in your body to be able to maneuver with them. Is that a good way to say it? Yeah. How to put their cheek on the gun or how to hold it and stand forward, how to stand like a fighter.
It was a lack of familiarity. So just like when you see somebody in a suit that never wears a suit and they feel awkward with it.
Yeah.
Some of them still like they were holding a gun, but it was very awkward for them.
And this was, I remember looking at James and saying, I am now in support of you taking a 6 to 8 hour day of dry without ever firing.
No, not now. I have said this before. When ammo gets scarce, I can do a dry class, but nobody will sign up for it.
Yeah, and a dry class from somebody who doesn't can take you from whatever level you are, 6 hours of dry class in one day will make you very lethal, very fast.
Mm-hmm. Because, and we all know this, and you've said this, Jaeger, I've learned it from you, as important as pressing the trigger and understanding the fundamentals of marksmanship is, pressing the trigger is such a small part in the grand scheme of things that you have to be proficient in.
Weapon handling is more important than marksmanship. Because if your gun's not in your hand and it's not loaded, you can't shoot the damn thing.
One of the things that was really stood out to me was we started the first drill with everybody was how to load the gun. And then how the drills that we progressed, eventually by the end of the time, I was like, wow, you guys look like gunfighters. But in my mind, like there was one time that I was working with this guy and I kept trying, and James is like, hey, come here. There's more than that guy. Matter of fact, go stand on the other side of the room right now and talk to those guys. Because I kept trying to get it through to his head, and I just realized that, it really takes reps and watching the other people and not necessarily you as an instructor over the top of them beating it in their head.
That never works. Yeah. Never. Like I tell my guys, if you can't teach it to them in 60 seconds, walk away, help somebody else, and come back. But your effectiveness with that student decreases dramatically over the course of 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah. And I was like 15 minutes in on this dude, and I'm like, you're going to figure this out.
Nobody speaks this. They don't speak the same language. Yeah.
Yeah. So Lexo he could speak Russian. So he would tell them in Russian people who spoke Ukrainian. So it was a lot more difficult to get something across.
And Russian is his third language.
Is his third language? Yeah. And so you're telling somebody in English that's translating in Russian to a Ukrainian who barely speaks Russian. Yeah.
So you begin to understand the importance of physically showing them what what you want them to do, right? Jaeger, you talk about this all the time. You don't show them the wrong way. Sometimes
I say only show them the right way.
Correct. And so many times, like here in America, people, what was I doing? Don't show them what they were doing. You only show them what they need to be doing and stop. And when you don't speak the language or there's a language barrier, it forces you to distill down into as few words and motions what it is they need to do. And that exercise is very valuable. I don't know how to explain it more than that, but it's extremely valuable.
Yeah, and it's from the starting of loading and me wanting to tell them everything to not being able to communicate with them, but only be able to motion, like show them in motions how to do this. I was able to see through, 90% of our communication is with our bodies. I was able to see how much they could progress, even though either I couldn't talk to them or the guy that we were talking to was, broken way trying to get it to him and explain it to him. It was really a cool experience to see what you can teach somebody and how they can go from somebody who hadn't had a gun to look like somebody who's had one all their lives in about 6 hours.
And in addition to that, just like here in the U.S., there were students who, they've been doing it a certain way. So just a habit that you've got to break. But also, why do it this way when you can do it this way? And there was a certain level of taking control of the situation, saying, no, do it this way, and showing them a certain level of success, because now 2 or 3 drills later, they begin to understand, like, oh, there was a reason why they were making us do that. And when they could see the success in themselves and the other students, then they began to trust us further on future drills.
Yeah, and they really, really, a couple weeks into this, maybe a week into this, really started to like soak it in like a sponge and very much appreciate that we were there.
Yeah. Now, without discussing how often, how many, or how much for OPSEC issues, let's talk about live fire.
Okay.
So what we noticed was these guys, when we did the dry practice, at least 6 hours with them and took them to the range, it was awesome. It was safe. We had done all the turns and the positions in the dry, and they were fantastic live fire.
And I had really thought, I had remember asking you, I said, hey, after this, do you think that they are even going to be lethal to, 25 meters maybe? And it turns out they were really lethal. I would probably say to probably 100.
100, yeah.
Yeah, and if you were able to watch the live fire training that we did, and not, with the volume off, right? So you couldn't hear that they didn't speak English. I don't think you would have been able to tell a difference between them and Americans that come and train here.
Yeah.
Like, it was that on point.
Yeah, for sure.
Their gear might not have been as Gucci, though.
But,
But you know what? You bring up a good point. Like, I'll tell you what, willingness is a state of mind. Readiness is a statement of fact, right? These people were willing. They weren't necessarily ready. And their gear wasn't, 90% of them, their gear wasn't as Gucci as ours. But it really made me consider how much time we waste watching gear reviews and indecisiveness. Oh, should I get this one or should I get that one? Should I do this? Man, it really is the Indian, not the arrow. Like, you need quality gear, and buy once, cry once, but get your gear and stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
Like, develop yourself. Upgrade your software. Don't.
Yeah. So now let's talk about weapon handling at the end of our stay.
Oh man! So
just like in all of the buildings in the lunchroom, the weapon handling at that point, only the people that didn't go to the class had bad habits.
Oh yeah, when there was like a company meeting where the generals would get together and bring everybody there, you could tell who had trained and who hadn't.
Yeah.
And as the weeks went by, it would be like 90% of those dudes were handling their guns professionally, and then you'd see some Yahoo come in, and even the guys that would trade with us are like, "What's this guy's problem? What's your, you know?"
So another OPSEC thing, I won't give exact numbers, but we trained over 100 people. Let's just leave it at that.
1 million.
It's just
No.
yeah, let's leave it at that. So we have a big section, a big pool of people to see some trends, and what I found is that the Heraclitus, 10 shouldn't even be here, 8 are nothing more than targets, 9 warriors. I think they had a lot of warriors, probably more than 9. I felt solid about the guys, but I think they're fine.
I'll tell you one of the things that since we've been gone, a couple of the guys have stayed in touch with me, and they're letting me know, the possibilities of what's next for them. And it was almost like, for me, like now you're like, I wish I was there with you. I wish I was there with you for this next part. Like now you're kind of grown up, and I've got to send you to the actual game. And now you're a little worried for them. You're like, all right, you got this. I know we did a good job with you. You're going to be okay. Keep moving. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I miss those guys already. Like I wake up and I'm like, oh, what are they like? What time is it over there? I figure it out. I'm like, what are they doing? Where are they at?
Yeah, for sure. So anything else about the training?
The live fire was cool. They would load tracers in their last 2 rounds. Now, this is not something in all of the times that I've shot that is normal to me. So they would shoot these things, and they would all run out. Like the first time they did it, they all ran out about the same time. And I was watching these little red things hit the dirt and spin. I was like, what the heck is this? And it took me like this minute, but like the shock, like, what is that? What is that? And then there's another one. What is that? Oh, they're tracers. Why are they shooting tracers? Like what? Like what a waste.
I thought there were tracers in the backstop, and they shot and reignited them, because that happened to us in Iraq.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I liked was, we'd get there, we had to share the range with other military units, and so sometimes we had downtime, and to watch those other military units and then our guys show up and totally look way more just proficient.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Our guys are way better.
Yeah, almost like a proud teacher or a proud parent. Look at my guy. You guys fucked up. My guys.
Well, and what was kind of cool too is even with the dry practice that we did, we would get a significant number of guys that would just come back and repeat. And you could tell as the days wore on, the receptiveness and the eagerness of the new students was there, because we had people that had trained,
right,
and they would talk about it and no doubt go practice some of the stuff that they learned. And people were like, wait, how'd you learn that? These guys over there.
The first couple of days, it was like, we don't do it that way. After that shit stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they would have like private sessions, and they would all go work out in between their shifts, and they would all go practice.
And we had some people that would come back so much that we then were like, no, you are behind the line now, and you're going to help teach.
Yep.
Yeah, they knew what the movements were, and they knew the language, and so we just said, you have a job today.
Yeah, and so it was amazing, because we started finishing early, because it was like this thing that was growing on its own and becoming more efficient. We were getting better as teachers, they were getting better as students, and then the students were getting better enough to begin assist teaching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's talk about daily life. Like we slept on air mattresses and benches.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we slept on like restaurant benches, and we would put them together, and then we set all 5 of them on one side of the room. And kind of my thought was these will be cool, because if they bomb us, the glass would come out, or any frag would come out. We at least have some kind of protection, maybe kind of from glass or something. And I don't know, 3 or 4 days in, my neck and my back had been like miserable, and I couldn't decide if it was from hitting that guy head on or if it was.
Yeah, you have to.
Oh, so the way that we would travel in the military convoys was they would turn on their flashers and they would pass everybody and run every red light. Now, when I say flashers, I don't mean your police strobes, or I mean just your regular flashers. You're in a regular car. Hazards, yeah, hazards. And we would pass everybody, and however fast that car drove, that's how fast we drove, and bobbed in and out of everybody. And we had to make it to this area, and this guy was driving us, and we had 28 minutes to make a 32-minute drive. And we went in the wrong way. So this guy was driving, and we came through, and whap, we hit him. Now, we hit him hard enough that it messed up his car pretty good, and it messed up our radiator. But I didn't have a seatbelt on. Nobody had seatbelts on, and I braced really hard for the impact, and we smacked this guy. And when I say old men, I've seen some of you commenting on the YouTube. It's not like he was a 90-year-old man. He was like 60. If you're 60, you're an old man, right? Anyway, so I couldn't decide if my back hurt because we hit this guy or if it was my my bed. And I told James, and he's like, where's your back hurt at? And I said, it hurts right here in the middle. He's like, oh, mine did too. And then I switched to the mattress. I was like, oh, that's what it is. So I switched then to my air mattress. My noisy air mattress. And I knew it was noisy because Nate had been bitching about it the first night. So I moved it to the other side of the room, trying not to wake you guys up.
He moved into the kitchen.
So first, I just say this. I don't care where you go in the world, take a quality pillow with you. You can find the blanket, you can find the sleeping pad, but you can't find a good pillow. So I'm telling you, this is not because I'm old. You have to have sleep. You spend 8 hours or so a day sleeping. Take the room in your luggage and put a damn good pillow in there.
Yeah, it's amazing how much like sharp, killy, stabby things that you need to bring. And I'm not saying you don't, but we overlook just the everyday creature comforts that
this guy didn't.
Without.
Thanks for the pillow, James.
Now, fuck you. I had 3 bamboo pillows, right? He said, I want one of those while we're still here. I said, you know what? I'm going to take it. Okay, I'm going to take a pillow, but you're not using it. I'm going to put my phone on it at night while it charges. Jackass.
I'm glad he brought the pillow. Thanks, James.
So while we're gone, somebody had a birthday.
Happy birthday to you.
To me. So, I'm not a big birthday celebrator, so to speak, but I do like the opportunity. I like taking the opportunity to do new and unique things, and I've had that opportunity a few times with Jaeger and done some landmark things. And this time I was like, okay, we're in Ukraine on my birthday. This is pretty wild. And so when that got found out, the guys got together, and, the items are scarce. And so they gave me a partially opened or partially used pack of hydration tablets, flavored hydration tablets, and a grenade.
No, it was an IED.
Yeah. Well, yes.
It was a. If you look at my Instagram, you will see a tank round. It's a 30 millimeter, but it's like 4 times as long as like a F-16s.
And nobody knows what that means.
I know, but so it's like a foot. It's like an 18-inch shell, and they round and they pull the top off.
Nobody knows what that means.
Point being, there was a pin that you pull and a spoon that releases when you throw it. So, but it was a makeshift. So it was literally an improvised explosive device, grenade-y thing. And so
Perfect.
I'll tell you, and again, like, who gets a grenade for a birthday present?
Right.
Like, what do you got to do for that to happen? And so, for real, like, that was a very unique and thoughtful gift in the circumstances. And I was thrilled to have it. And so I told the guys, obviously when you throw one, you yell frag out. And so I said, if we find ourselves in a gunfight and you hear me yell, "Happy birthday, mother," right, you know specifically which one I'm throwing. So it was really cool.
So, go ahead.
I was just going to say that was a cool little IED grenade that was about the size of a sport smoke, and it was and to them, it was like a coveted thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, let's talk about food.
Wait, can we tell one more grenade story real fast?
God.
So we have
that one.
a trainer grenade, right? And so if you've never seen a real grenade or thrown a real grenade, and you've just only seen the little the fake ones that you buy at the store that are hollowed out, the spring doesn't work. But in the grenade, when you pull the pin, there's a spring that lets the lever up, and then it drops a firing pin and blows the grenade up. So James is, I don't know what he was doing.
No, I'm gonna show you what I did, and then he can tell a story, and go from. This is what happened. 3, 2, 1.
So I'm sitting here, Nate's sitting here. Nate and I are talking about this grenade and how I had already sprung it and how to re-put it back together. And
I'm looking at my phone, ignoring the fuck out of it.
He has no idea that it's going on, and I'm like, yeah, just pull it. Now just go ahead and let it go, Nate. And so Nate pulls it, and he goes in and let it go.
No, I look up, and Nate is just pull it out. And I look, really? And I don't know if it's a fake grenade. It's not colored like a fake grenade. It looks exactly like a real grenade. And he fucking pulled that pin. I saw it in slow motion. I went, well, here we go.
So afterwards, I'm still talking to Nate, and James stops, and he's like, he had his glasses down like this, and he's like, my heart just skipped a beat right there.
Yeah. And I'm still in experimenting with the practice grenade mode. And I'm like, oh, you what? Oh,
yeah,
oh my gosh. So these guys are. So we had acquired some spray paint for a drone the day before. And one of it was a really good shade, like a trainer shade of blue. And so I promptly the next day went and I spray painted it. It was one of the cooler arts and crafts projects I've done. And so I spray painted it blue so that we always knew that that was the trainer. Now, speaking of grenades and other things, so when we got over there, we had heard all sorts of wild things about cellular signals and radio frequencies and being able to ping and locate people. And so we had picked up cell phones over there and SIM cards in different countries. And so I brought with me just a very short list of people to reach out to, one of which was my dad. And so I thought, I had contacted my, a sister and said, hey, I'm going to Poland. And I just left it at that. And so finally I was like, hey, I messaged her and I was like, hey, show Dad how to download this certain messaging app. Because I was going to reach out to him because it had been a couple days after my birthday. I was like, my family's probably trying to get a hold of me. I should probably just be like, hey, I'm, spring break, 22, Poland, right? And so I messaged him. I was like, hey, Dad, how's it going? Good to see you or whatever. Just keeping it trite. And I think he asked me where I was. I was like, I'm in Europe. And he was like, I saw your grenade birthday present. I'd so many times in my life as a young boy, I was like, well, the gig's up. Dang it. So at that point, it was just minimize, because my dad knows and my mom knows and, mom's worry and all that stuff. And so I was like, we're just, doing stuff, nothing crazy. But he probably saw the grenade story. And
again, this is when Nate comes to me and goes, hey, did you put a picture of me up with my grenade? Yeah. It's like, It's like I'm a horse and there's hay. Do you eat that hay? Yeah, I'm a horse. It's what we do. Unless you have an oat bag, I'm eating the hay.
Yeah, so my same dad who I've had to help do things on the computer, and I'm convinced has, what you expect, your parents' lack of competency on the computer, and now all of a sudden he's figured out somehow on the computer that I got a grenade for my birthday. Like, dang it.
All right. So, food.
Who don't say it. The next person that says it,
Buckwheat.
Oh, there's a grain called buckwheat. And so if you imagine every day to eat, there's boiled or baked chicken, plain, no seasoning, and plain, no seasoning buckwheat. Now, when I say every day, I mean breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's all there was to eat for days and days. Sometimes there would be also soup or also pierogies, but buckwheat and chicken was a staple.
And so they all loved it. Like, I mean, everybody loved it, and I did too the first day.
Yeah. And after that, I think I ate it the most because I was trying to not lose my gains. Which, by the way, I stepped on the scale. I lost probably 17 pounds over there.
I lost 20 pounds.
I haven't weighed, but my belt is no longer fitting. That sucks. But I will say
in or out.
In, like I'm having to pull it in. But I will say I got to go one day out of the blue because sometimes they would just be like, hey, whatever their language. So to me sounds like blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, you want me to get in the car? Blah, blah. Okay. I get in the car. And so they take me, and we had just ate buckwheat and chicken, and they take me downtown, and I still am not understanding the language. And then they're kind of pushing me out of the car and into this building. And I'm like, all right.
This is a guy that doesn't trust them.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm like, and then there are some sketchy looking dudes in the building. And I'm like, yeah, man, this sucks. And I'm there by myself, but I got my gun. So I go downstairs.
Hold on a second. This is one of many times that me and Nate would go, where's Trey? I don't know. He just wasn't there. Like it happened every day.
Every day.
For
Yeah.
as untrusting as he was, he would just gallivant out into this.
Well, because so in my mind, I'm like, all right, we would get to the portion of the drills that it was like Nate and Lexo, or they could, it was like one guy just needed to watch them, and there wasn't a bunch of us watching them on the line anymore. And I'd be like, I'm going to go and I'm going to look outside because we're always inside and they don't want us to go outside. So I'm going to look outside. I'm going to start asking everybody that speaks a little English what's going on. And I'm just going to start looking and seeing like, what's the story? Because it was getting kind of fishy sometimes. And
No, not on the soccer field.
on the soccer field, it was not fishy at all. The drama was out of the soccer field.
Every once in a while, like it was a majority of outgoing artillery, but every once in a while we'd be in the middle of a drill and there was incoming, and it would be loud enough to where everybody would just stop and be like, and then continue the drill. Like, well, let's just focus on the task at hand here.
Anyway, back to what I was saying. So I go down in this building, and these ladies buy the, I don't know, out of their own pockets. There was like, I don't know, 8 or 10, 12, 15, I don't know how many ladies were down there cooking this. And just had gigantic batches of buckwheat and chicken. And what is the soup called? That day they had the borscht soup. And then they made me eat it all again. And I had literally just ate, and I was like, all right, these guys, they're so nice. They're all hugging me. I'm going to eat all of this. And I mean, I was like, can I put this in my mouth anymore? But I did. I choked it all down. And then after that, I appreciated the buckwheat and chicken way more because I realized people out of their own kindness of their heart were working for free using their own money to feed everybody.
Yeah, it was cooked with love.
Yeah, a lot
legitimately.
of love. Yeah.
So let's talk about 7.
Oh, we met a hacker.
He works for Anonymous, he was part of the team that sent all the texts to every cell phone in Russia.
Yep. And so I will say this to the U.S. Customs agent that subscribed to my YouTube channel. I'm sure you're going to hear this. We don't have we can't hook you up with him. But
Yeah, I can.
no, we can't.
Yeah, I sure can. I know his address and his girlfriend's name and number and.
We don't know any of that.
We had coffee with him. At
No,
his house.
he's never. He said he's never committed a crime here.
Yeah. Oh, he's never committed it in
Yeah,
the U.S.
he said because I wanted to be able to visit there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway, cool dude.
Anyway, so Shelton, the compliment Shelton has for me is that if I have something fucked up on my phone or computer, he doesn't know how to fix it. So he has to go look it up and learn how to fix it. So it's the same compliment that Seven gave me. But a neat guy, fun to be around. Hey, I didn't get to say goodbye to him, but Seven, love you, man. You're a good dude.
Yeah, he's a good dude, and he's legit like hacking Russia, and it's cool.
And they, I don't know how much we can or want to go, but obviously they do a lot of recon for artillery with drones.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was very knowledgeable in that aspect. And the types of drones that, I'm not saying the right words, but certain types of drones you can fly and they know where the controller is.
Oh, yeah.
And, to return fire too.
Yeah.
And so he was aware of that. And they were in the process of going through different ways of mitigating that.
And let's leave it at that.
Yeah. And then we all got our little books, remember, signed by that one artillery guy.
Yeah, that was cool.
Who, because a lot of times we'd train these guys and Skip. And then they'd go and disappear for, 2-3 days to do work. And then we'd see them come back. But Skip was an old school artillery guy. And
a master of his craft.
And so, he went up kind of towards Irpin, which was in a bad way, to help the young artillery guys. And he came back and told us the story, and it was very emotional. It was a very bonding moment.
It was a poem.
Yeah. And Lex translated it for us. But then he proceeded to give us a very solid debrief on the artillery strikes that he did that were successful. And how they went about doing it, the shells that they used. It was very it was a very good learning experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
We could do a podcast on every significant person that we met and do an hour podcast on all of them, and we'd probably have 30 podcasts on amazing dudes that did amazing things, and the remaining of this war and their lives will continue to do amazing things. We met a lot of amazing people.
Okay. Did you meet any Nazis?
No. So this is crazy. This morning. So my sleep schedule's all jacked up, and I woke up at like 3:58. And so the constant thing we heard was we were going to go meet Nazis. And
No, before we got
there. And then we questioned everybody about the Nazis. And then we found out that it was a Finnish hunting sign turned sideways with a line through it. And
what they're calling the swastika on the Azov tank is not a swastika. And it didn't look like one to me either. But it's like a U with a line through it, like a pitchfork almost.
Yeah, and so I saw it for the first time this morning, right? I've been there a month. I saw it for the first time this morning, and I'm like, the news media decided to make this a swastika. I would have never said that in the beginning, and that is straight evil, horrid propaganda that is not true. And especially being there, talking to all of them, it's not even a thing.
Okay, besides that, one of our arguably best friends while we were there was Jewish.
Yep, Shalom. And come on. And we asked him, and he's like, no, there's no Nazis here. What are you talking about?
And I'm not going to say that there isn't a single guy
in
the country, right? But to give it some perspective, that's like, Canada invaded, and we're going to like fight in New Jersey, but we're not going to do it because there's this racist guy in Mississippi.
Yeah, and you're talking about they're saying that entire battalion is it's not even kind of. It's a Finnish hunting sign turned sideways saying they're hunting Russians. And
there are minorities in that battalion.
Yeah, people are. This is a standard story of the monkey slapping the alligator, and that is the news slapping the news is.
People don't
Yeah, they don't know that.
Tell the
analogy.
story then.
No, I'm not.
It's a long. Well, so I'll say, and we got a good breakdown. So the Azov, they explained to us how, football, right, what we would call soccer, is very big over there, and they have very dramatic, high-intensity fans who fight with each other. But when this happened, they came together and they formed a battalion.
Soccer hooligans.
Yes, soccer hooligans, that's it. And they're pretty hardcore dudes, and they just diverted their energy, combined it together and diverted it towards the Russians. And that was the explanation we got from one of the guys who was part of, if I remember correctly, part of Azov, and he just so happened to leave on the 23rd, the day before. Do you remember that guy telling us that story? Mm-hmm. But yeah, what I saw, right, which is not all-encompassing, but there was a lot of people who were not at all racist, Nazi. And like I said, one of our best dudes was a Jew.
I never heard a slang. I never saw anything. I saw nothing that would indicate that any person I met was racist.
I agree.
They asked me about racism here. I mean, they weren't. It's not a part of their culture.
Now, having said that, I didn't see any black people in Kyiv. No, we didn't get out much.
Right.
But,
And a lot of people were hiding, obviously. That Kyiv was a dug-in fortress.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
All right.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, I just imagine whatever large city that you live in, and the medians are dug up with fighting positions everywhere.
I will say, for all of the prepper experts on YouTube in America saying you don't want to be in a big city, everybody was in the big city. You know what I mean?
No.
Yeah.
People left.
Oh, they left, but I'm just saying they weren't out in farmhouses by themselves.
They weren't isolated.
They weren't isolated. They came together because it took people. But yes, most of the people, the women and children left. Most of them left. But the men all came from the farmland into the town so that they could be around other people to fight.
Yeah. So I prefer not to talk about the last 48 hours we were there. If you guys want to, we can.
No, I'm good with that.
I see nothing productive coming from that. So traveling out, the whole thing on the way in and the way out was just a series of high stress near misses. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and it was very different than the way in. So the way in, a lot of stress weighing on my body. On the way out, a lot of boredism, then push really hard for stress, and then you're about to miss this, and you're gonna, yeah.
And I'll say this too. We had a conversation at the end, and you said, "Hey, me personally, I release you guys from having to do everything as a group. Meaning, if any of us wanted to stay, we could have." And I didn't want to go back home. Like, I really wanted to stay. There was part of me that I understood, like, because I had an opportunity to teach a lot. But I also understood that while I taught, there was a lot of logistical and connection stuff that you were taking care of. And we really were a team, and we depended on each other. And one of the things I considered was, had I stayed, I wouldn't have been able to be as effective as when you guys were both there. But also, it took all three of us to make it on all those just like skin of our teeth evolutions. If I would have stayed, you guys together would not have made it back because it took all three of us to make that happen.
Yeah, and so we went with way less bags. James literally dumped most of his stuff.
I took 170 pounds and dropped way over 100.
Yeah, and so first I didn't go to buy the tickets, so I had Lexo's ticket, and Lexo was like, just show them the ticket in this hand, your passport in this hand, but never at the same time. It didn't matter; we didn't have to use it, but so yeah, we got up to once again. We had to walk up all of those stairs with all of our bags, and then back down those stairs. And when we were coming down the stairs, it was dark.
Why we got?
Yeah, yeah. Why did they do that? But, so we didn't know which our track was at first, and then finally we found out what it was. And we had waited for a couple of hours because curfew had hit, and so we were walking down the stairs. And James, so I've got a 60-pound pack on. I'm carrying a 60-pound bag down, and I've got a 40-pound bag in my other hand. And people are like all coming down together. I mean, it's not like it's crowded going down these stairs. And James is trying to shine the flashlight for me too, and I just fall and bust my tail.
Oh yeah, because they still lights out at night.
It's totally dark. We're going down these stairs, and I missed the bottom stair, and I fell. And it was okay because I landed on my bags. What was weird that I thought was I heard everybody behind me gasp. And then they all just went around me. And I was like, well, I mean, anywhere in the States, they'd have helped me up. But they just all went around me. And so I got back up, and James was like, you okay? And I'm like, yeah, just keep moving. Let's get in. And then so we had to walk way down the side.
He said that in such a manner, I thought he's lying. He's hurt.
Yeah, no. And at that time, I wasn't hurt at all. The next morning, I woke up, my knees were pretty sore. But then we had to walk way down the train, like 12 cars down or something. Mm-hmm. And then, we got on the train. This train was so much nicer.
We got on the train. Is this what took off? No, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so this was we were on time for this train. Lexo helped us get to the train, and then we put all our stuff on there. We had plenty of room. We had blankets. We had pillows, and
it was a bigger room. It was a nicer car, but we were leaving Kyiv and going to Lviv.
Yeah,
which we thought were like, oh, because when we were coming in, they were like, oh, we're behind Russian lines. Let's send the crappy car.
Yeah, and they shut that track that we went down not long after we did, so we couldn't. We wanted to go back up that way, but it was still under some occupied stuff, so they shut that line of it down. So we had to go to Lviv. And this one was easy because the stress level wasn't there. And so we just all had our own bunk, and we just went to sleep. Again, like an idiot, I forgot water. And they brought me a sparkling water, but it was so much better than nothing because I was like, but so we get to Lviv.
To get off.
Yeah, and we go downstairs. And we get to this middle part, and so we were carrying so much gear. James said, set it right here, and you guys go find out if we can buy a ticket, because we didn't have a ticket yet, if we could buy a ticket to Poland. And so we go around the corner, and I have
the translator app?
Yep. No, James sent it to us, remember, in a text in their language. Yep. And I walked up and handed it to this guy who was
It said we need 3 tickets to Warsaw.
Yeah.
Or that
to
Poland.
Whatever Poland station, and he was a volunteer. And so he said, hold on. And now at this time, I purposely, again, kept my multicam on, my American flag, my American-Ukrainian flag, and the blue stripe. So they knew I was an American. They knew I was there to help, right? That was a good idea from Lexo. So the guy grabbed my phone, and then he said, hold on. And he took off, and then he came back, and he's like, come on. And so Nate and I are running down the hall after this guy, and we're trying to tell him, like, dude, we don't have a ticket. We haven't even bought a ticket. And we're running, and then he runs us up the stairs, and finally he's talking to a conductor. We're
like at our third car, and we can tell the guys are like, no room on this car. No room on this car. Then we get to a guy, and he's like, it sounds like there's a possibility, but then we stop him. We're like, 3.
Yeah.
Because there's only the 2 of us, 3 in bags.
And now we don't have a ticket now. And he said, 5 minutes. Okay, so Nate and I run down the stairs.
So I'm there. These two going, we gotta go.
So I run down the stairs and I'm like, we gotta go right now. And I'm grabbing stuff and we just take off back running, right? And so we get up. Mind you, we still don't have a ticket, but this conductor's letting us on.
Yeah.
And so I'm throwing up bags and throwing up bags and throwing up bags. And then as we get on, as all three of us get on, literally he starts to pull the steps up and the train starts moving. Like it was like a movie that the train started moving as he pulled the steps up. And then he was like, I don't know, $350 a piece, right? 350 grievin a piece. And when he said that, I was like, I don't have any more Ukrainian money. I'm just going to have to give you $100 bill. And James had the money. So I was like, whew.
James was like,
And so
Keep your change, sucker.
yeah, he even said, keep the change. And then, we got on that one. Just literally movie type nick of time.
mm-hmm.
So then we crossed back through two borders, uneventful.
Yep.
Still the same amount of time, though. It took like 3 or 4 hours.
So there wasn't a direct to Warsaw. It was a city right over the border in Poland. So we get out there, and we've got to go in through Polish customs. And who's the guy that's got to open his bag?
Every time we went to airport and they saw us, random search. Random. I feel like they're profiling.
So in my bag, I've got, when we were all fast, quick, and in a hurry, I wasn't in the room. Somebody was like, hey, put all the magazines in Nate's bag. So, of course, open it up. There's like all these magazines, and they see my holster. And so we had to figure out the words, but they basically making sure I didn't have any ammo or a gun. And I was like, oh, no, I don't have any of that. And then, so there I am in this train station sitting on my bag again, like fighting with the zipper to get it all back in. And then our contact in Warsaw had coordinated for a cab driver.
After the Polish customs looked in the bag, they apologized.
Yeah, they were really nice. He stopped and talked to me for a while. He was like, were you in Kiev? I said, yes. He said, what's it like there? And I told him it's like getting back to a normal city and everybody's moving east. And he said, do you have anything dangerous? I said, no. And he's like, okay. And then they go over there and they're searching Nate.
Yeah, I don't know. I just look suspicious, I guess.
Yeah, it's the long beard. That was his nickname there. They named him the Long Beard.
So Adam sets up for us a 5-hour taxi ride. Now, this might sound horrible, but we're probably more comfortable in the taxi than we have been
in any other mode of transportation.
And the dude is just flying.
Yeah, flying, and he smokes, but not in the car. So he stops every 45 minutes or hour. He said, "Oh, toilet."
Yeah.
So we got plenty of stops, and he hauled ass, and it was great. Great.
Yeah. So then we get to Warsaw. Now James is sick. Now this one wasn't my fault. The first one I got him sick, but
yeah, I think it lowered my immunity, the first one, and then let the second one come on.
And he's sick, and so we meet Adam again, and we're going to shoot, and so Adam's got some really cool.
Adam's like, "I have this great day plan. We're going to the range." I said, "I don't go to a damn range on vacation." He said, "What?" I said, "That's your hobby, not mine." It'd be like if you came to, he's an attorney. If you came to America, I said, "Let's go to the courthouse."
And then what was funny is right after that, he's like, "Well, I would like to go to the courthouse."
Nah, he's lying.
We did get to shoot some really cool Soviet era
old guns. Yeah.
It was really neat.
What was funny is he was like, these rounds are from 1947. And I'm like, if I was in America, they would be on my shelf. And I'd be like, I don't think I'm shooting those.
Oh, bullshit. There's all kinds of old 45 and 30-06.
I just wouldn't have shot it. And we just shot them and they shot fine.
Mm-hmm.
And the guns were cool. They were guns that I had never heard of or never thought that I would hear of. And they were cool to shoot. Then we went to dinner with his wife.
Well, we went to the Harley dealership in Warsaw because we also went to a Harley dealership in Kyiv, but it was closed.
Yeah, pussies.
Come on.
They had
It's
a
war.
We were trying to figure out how to rent motorcycles because we were like, how awesome would that be with our AKs over our backs riding in Kyiv? That would be
That's
cool.
not a joke. That's
no, we
not-
really tried to do that.
But that wasn't a possibility. And then we're like, okay, well, we'll rent some Harleys and do that in Warsaw. But it was still kind of cold, and they didn't really start renting for another month or two. So
Yeah.
They did have a vintage American 1996 Fat Boy.
Hunk of shit.
Anyway, so then we go out to eat. James is really sick then. Next morning, it's time to fly. I was a little worried. I was like, man, James is so sick that
He probably got the Rona.
he probably got the Rona. So
So this fucking guy, I flight 6. He said, "What do you guys think? 5:30?"
like, no, 4 at least.
I said 3, but at least 4.
I like to show up 30 minutes early to the airport.
No,
and
that's
walk in
2
on time.
hours late.
I know. And literally this was proving it. So we get there the night before. Nate and I had went and asked where the gate would be. And so we still have all of our bags. I've narrowed mine down to 3 50-pound bags. And we're stand in line, and we stand in line for 51 minutes. Yeah. And
It's now almost 5 a.m.
Yep, almost 5 a.m. And we get to the counter, and the guy's like, passport. I give him my passport, and he said, we need your COVID test. I said, my vaccination card is in there. And he said, no, I need your COVID test. I said, my vaccination card is in there. He said, U.S. law says you have to have it. So I go off. I'm like,
I'm an American citizen.
I'm pissed now.
Again,
He
I'm
went
like,
into full Karen mode.
Stop
Oh, I was
being,
pissed.
Stop being such an American. I thought that 100 times.
Yeah, I know he
over
did.
again.
But
I was like, where can we get a test here? He said, over there. Now the mad dash for the test begins.
We've got 55 minutes before our flight is supposed to leave, and we have to go get rapid test results
Take
for
20
COVID.
minutes just for the test, not to sign the papers. 20 minutes.
So I want to tell you something really cool about this part of this, and it happened throughout the trip with us. I own a business, and I've owned a business for a long time, and usually it's kind of up to me to do something or to be forward thinking because the employees aren't that forward thinking. And when you have 3 guys that all think forward together, it's kind of cool. So we all go. James says, drop the stuff off here. You guys run down. I'll watch the stuff so we're not having to carry it as far. Nate and I fly down there, pay for 3 tests, get our 2 tests, run back. James and Nate go down there. I see 2 carts. I load up everything on the 2 carts, and I start pushing both the carts to get back in line. And then minutes later, here comes Nate. And like all 3 of us did strategic jobs to make sure that we could get there.
And so I brought Jaeger down there so he knew precisely where to go.
So
And I gave him our numbers, so he had the numbers to get the 3 COVID negative test results. I come back up, you and I are in line.
So I get swabbed, and I'm waiting and thinking what you're saying. I'm like, ain't no way I got the Rona, boys. And so she brings his test back, and she brings mine back. I said, it's okay. She said, yeah. I said, really?
I really thought, I was in line, and I'm like, we're going to be in quarantine here for 2 weeks.
I had already decided that if mine was negative, I wasn't going to tell them till they already got their tickets. So they have to go. But it was okay.
Yeah. I mean, and literally we were the last person in line. And I was telling the guy, I was like, just start checking me in. It'll be fine. And he's like, I can't. And James walks up. He's like, here's our papers. I was like, phew. And then so.
So in addition to that, so we have legit.
Vaccination cards.
And we still had to get a negative test result that was 24 hours or less. And I was like, if that isn't proof.
Hold on a second.
No.
Then we got onto a plane
yeah.
where every single person had to have a vaccine and a test and still had to wear the fucking mask.
Yeah, how does this make sense? You have to be vaccinated. You have to have your... It doesn't make sense.
Let's not get too deep into that.
Yeah, like if that isn't a clue to the control.
All right, so we fly, and then we get to Hotlanta.
Mm-hmm. And who's got 2 thumbs and has to talk to customs? This guy.
And so I got through before them, through customs, and they wouldn't let me stand there and wait on them, so they made me go down the stairs. And she kept yelling at me, and I was like trying to drag my feet, and she kept yelling at me, so I started to slowly go down the stairs. And I was like, okay, I'm expecting customs to get me right before we go to the plane, not at customs. And then James comes down. I'm like, where's Nate? And he's like, oh, he had to go to customs.
They got him.
Yeah, and then here comes Nate walking with his head down.
So I'm walking with the cop and Nate, and I'm walking behind Nate. What did they get you for, man?
Yeah.
Yeah, so James and I get the bags, and here comes Nate, and we're like, oh, well, that was a quick meeting. I guess he told him he didn't want to talk to him. And then he comes out of the bathroom and goes right back over there. I was like, oh, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I was going to sit there and wait. And we're like, great. You guys always figure out a time to talk to us when we're trying to make a flight.
Yeah.
And we still had to go through another customs checkpoint.
TSA.
Yeah. The amount of TSA checkpoints that we went through, we're like, we just got off of a plane. Like,
And the redonkulousness of the last one in Atlanta for me was I go through and they were like, hey, you can't take these like select candies. And I got them for my girls. And then I was like, that's ridiculous. I just flew 5,000 miles with these.
the power tripping of these TSA people.
And then this one dude was cool, and he was like, man, just go check your bag on. And I was like, all right, I'm going to do that. So he said, just walk back here to this counter. And so they walked me back to the Delta counter. The food was there. The water was there. The coat was there. There was no person there. And then I realized we had 21 minutes left, and I was like, we're going to miss our plane. So I just had to throw all that away. And then I'm walking back through. Mind you, this custom agent hadn't left me, or TSA agent. And then they make me walk through the screening again. I was like, I just did this. You just screened it. You just watched me throw this away, and you did it again, but this time you swabbed my hands.
Yeah.
It just didn't make sense.
So now we finally get him back and go, and I don't see anyone in the waiting area at this gate. Oh my God. And then it said boarding. It still said boarding on the thing. So we turned to get our tickets and walk, and like we were within minutes, like 3 or 4 minutes of the door closing.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy. Give some shouts. Alexo, Paul, Sig, Zahar, Maniac, Seven. Who you guys want to shout out to?
Ra.
Ra.
Yeah,
Oh, Ra.
yeah.
Love you, man.
Sergey.
Skip, you're awesome.
I know we're missing a couple of people. That dude that made me an espresso in the airport.
Yeah.
Oh,
what was his name?
his name's Bob.
Yeah,
Shrek.
Bob.
Shrek.
And then there was the night before we went, and he
No,
was
no,
like, "Oh."
no, the airport. The airport.
Oh, the airport.
Yeah.
Airport. Oh,
And
yeah.
what was so awesome about it was
Shrek,
because
yeah.
the day before we were in a different part of the airport, and I forget his name. I was talking to a guy. He actually had trained in the U.S. with military forces as well. And he was like, "Oh, would you like a coffee?" I was like, "Yes." I saw this legit espresso machine. And so he goes in there and he puts some instant coffee in a cup, and he uses this magnificent espresso machine for the hot water. And I was just like, really? But I mean, it was still a great experience. We were getting to know each other, talk, and I was like, but then the next day we were on the second level and we had a legit barista who hooked it up. So they were both great cups of coffee in different ways.
Any other people you want to say hi to or recognize?
No, but you know, I thought about something. You can cut this out later if you want. in the beginning you asked why. And I had thought about this some. And, you know, talking about being alumni and being associated with the company here and the opportunities to meet so many people and learn from them here stateside. You know, I've learned so much from John Farnham, Clint Smith, Super Dave, and a host of other people. And I've gotten the buddy hookup on a lot of it too, right? You're just people that give freely of their time to me. And I thought about this on the flight home. Delta, I had a chance to watch the Magnificent Seven. And
The new one.
yes, the new one. And we as dudes, we find ourselves watching so many movies about heroes facing their fears and going into the unknown and helping the underdog, right? And every once in a while, life gives us an opportunity to do that. But there's something inside that you have to get over. Your own fear and hesitation, right? And, you know, to some extent, we can watch the movie and fantasize about and identify as the hero. But in life, if we don't ever do that, we're just kind of mentally LARPing, if that makes sense. And so that combined with the realization that I've been fortunate enough to have so many men that I think are fantastic, pour decades of knowledge and life experience into me, that, you know, what am I going to do with that? Just sit on it? And I saw this as an opportunity to pass the information on that has been graciously given to me to people who are desperate for it, because they don't have that opportunity. And, you know, there was critics before we came here, you know, type in keyboard commandos, people that I even made videos on their YouTube channel. I was like, you don't even know what you're talking about. You're making videos, like, right?
About us.
Yeah, like live your life. And, you know, one of the things was like, oh, you should be down on the border and this and that, blah, blah, blah.
And they weren't on the border.
Right. And I'll say this. What we were doing was teaching things to people who were literally going to go and get into gunfights in a day or two.
Within
or the next
hours.
Yes. And that's not happening right now on any of our borders, fortunately. Yes, it is, but not in the context that it was here, right? Not in an invasion context. But to those critics, you have an opportunity that those people don't. You have the ability to come and train. It doesn't have to be here. It could be anywhere. And that was another learning point, was the amount of noise and chatter from the people that don't do anything but make noise.
Yeah. Yeah, the 100% contribution is just to be chirping.
Noisemakers, yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Hey, Trey, anything you want to...
Nope, I'm good. What I got out of this the thing that I took the most, and it took going with you, was to be able to, I guess I had the courage to do it, but it was the opportunity to use the courage to enter a different portion of my life, overcome fears, and realize that in America we create a lot of drama for ourselves because we're bored. And to see a different culture, a different people, a hard people, and people that really needed help. And I would not have been able to get over that fear had I not had you as a stepping block to do it. So forever, that'll be an important step in my life that will allow me to go do this again for somebody else should they need it, you know? So I appreciate that.
Well, thanks. And so I have to thank 3 different people or groups. number one, these two guys for everything, but physical strength that I do not possess anymore. They literally carry my weight. So every day, every single day, hey, do this, can't help me do this, lift that, pull that. And all these bags you're talking about carrying, I had 170 pounds of gear that I didn't carry. They carried. So I can't thank you guys enough. My family didn't only like begrudgingly give me permission. They were proud of me for going, and their support is unwavering, and leaves me speechless. They've supported me everything I've ever done. And finally, the people that contributed financially
100%, yeah.
paid for our plane tickets, our foods, our our cab fares, and bought a washing machine for those folks, and all the things, all the other things allowed me to leave thousands. We all did, but leave thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of gear. I left all my armor from Air 500 and all that stuff, all kinds of stuff. It's because of your generosity, and I really appreciate that. And now I've been to my second war with a couple of guys, and now I think I've had enough of the hoorahs.
Now we ride motorcycles.
All right, to ride. We'll see you guys riding in the Rockies in July. Thank you for listening. Remember, your responsibility to be ready for the fight never ends.